Welcome back to the Bourbon and BS podcast, everyone. We can talk about the proof of this in a second.
Didn't say anything.
I know. We're live on Facebook and YouTube. This is episode 235. We have Spencer Lappin back in the garage after a little bit of time.
Woo-hoo.
Welcome back. And we have Nate Hale, obviously. I'm Steve Crane, and we have another guest coming on that we just recently had the opportunity to have in the garage not too long ago. In fact, you're listening to that podcast right now, Spencer. Yeah. So before we bring him on and talk about what we're doing tonight, I do want to put up the sponsors. First and foremost, you guys, patreon.com/bourbon and BS podcast. That's all of you guys that help us out on a monthly basis, support the show. We love that. We appreciate that. It helps us get this out to you guys each week live, and then also the audio on all your podcast apps, iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and all that good stuff. If you guys want to do a one-time contribution instead of a monthly contribution, you can go on Venmo at Bourbon and BS. One-time contribution goes towards a bottle you want or something specific that you're hoping to see on the show. We appreciate that. We've had some people ask, like, what do we need? Just reach out to the show. Or if you just want to give, like I said, a one-time contribution, we appreciate that. Thanks to the Tinderbox at Easton in Columbus, Ohio. They are providing tonight's cigar, the Mas Igneus, and we're going to talk to our special guest about that cigar going into it. I want to thank Nate for bringing on the bottle tonight that we're drinking. Thank you very much.
You're welcome, as always.
Altadis USA, we've got the Romeo y Julieta, the Reserva Real. So we're looking forward to smoking that at second part. They always do the second cigar of the night for part two. Part two's topic tonight is cut the shit. So that'll be interesting.
Cut the shit.
That's it. So we'll see what we get into in that conversation.
Yeah.
BS Cigar Company, thanks for the support as well. The gold and silver are available. Check them out on social media, through the podcast, or at Tinderbox at Easton in Columbus, Ohio. Contact them for those as well. And what we are wearing, well, 2 out of 3 are wearing. Spencer's got a shirt from the annual event, Smoking 10 event, which happens in March around Patty's Day. I've got the black and red BS 3/4 sleeves. Nate's got the gray and black 3/4 sleeves. But buyjack.com/bourbon and BS for any of the apparel and swag for the show or BS cigars. Some good stuff on there, including the podcast shirt that says, pour one more, light up another. We'll figure this out together in 4 different colors. So check that out as well. And just a reminder for all you guys out there, please drink responsibly, whether you're driving, not driving, whatever. Do your best to please drink responsibly, as always, as this is a show that is kind of based behind booze. All right,
Really?
Let's bring him on. Must Bourbon and BS. So we've got back by popular demand as he's pouring a glass.
Go.
Yeah. Yep, that's it.
We got Jake Sanders back on the show remotely. You're at home right now, is that right?
I am, yes. In Carmel, Indiana, just north of Indy.
Fantastic. We appreciate you taking time. I know you're very, very busy. And are you listening to music or is that people talking?
I think it's people talking. Shut up.
Bitch, shut up.
I'm going to cut the shit.
Cut that shit. Love it. So, yeah, also want to remind everyone to share it. But, Jake, thanks for being on tonight.
Of course.
We just got in at Tinderbox at Easton. We got a new cigar that's distributed by Crowned Heads. In fact, we wanted to kind of, I guess, zero in. How is this supposed to be presented here? Because it's distributed by Crowned Heads, made by
Ace Prime.
But
it's
at the Pichardo factory.
Yes.
See, I have it as the Pichardo is the manufacturer. So I fucked up, man.
It's all right. It is kind of confusing. That's why I just say like it's distributed by Crowned Heads. Obviously, the manufacturer is it is Ace Prime, but it's being made at Tabacalera Pichardo in Esteli, Nicaragua. So,
what is Ace Prime?
Ace Prime, Jake. I think we have the expert on here.
Yeah, so it's basically kind of I would like to, honestly, it's just difficult to explain. Like it's a separate company, it's a separate entity, but Crowned Heads distributes it.
Private label?
Yeah, well, not like a private label. It is their private label, but it's a separate company than Crowned Heads. We just distribute it.
Okay.
So, but we work with them. all their stuff comes out of Pichardo in Esteli, Nicaragua. So,
Is there a well-known brand or cigar that I would know from Ace Prime?
Fiat Lux,
Okay, sure.
the Luciano, the Dreamer, that got number 12. The Lancero did, and Cigar Aficionado last year. So,
Was that the one you guys had on the podcast when you were on?
We had the Robusto.
Robusto, but
Yeah.
the Luciano was.
Yeah, Luciano the Dreamer.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Okay.
so, and Luciano is obviously a part owner of Ace Prime as well. So, him blending most of Crowned Head cigars these days, it's just one big family.
Yeah. Crowned Heads utilizes 4 different manufacturers for their cigars, but a lot of their stuff nowadays is coming out of that Pichardo factory.
Yep. Yeah. I would say probably 90% of it is.
Cool. It's a
Okay.
beautiful cigar. Just
Try-
aesthetically, absolutely beautiful.
I'm trying to share this.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about the cigar. Sorry.
Yeah, no, you're good. So Mas Igneus is a Catalan expression from Spain, where it means more ignition, or house of ignition, if you will. So basically, the main story behind the cigar is I don't know if you can kind of see it, everyone, but kind of the rose gold and the black and the M.
Let me put you on solo here, bud.
Oh, you're good.
You deserve it.
No, I don't know about this face, but the cigar definitely. So, so it's got an M on it. Obviously, the I is kind of in that main M there, and then Mas Igneus. So, it is a beautiful wrap relief. I think it's got a dark wrap relief. I think so. I'll kind of go from the fillers up. So you have Nicaraguan and Dominican fillers. Now I know Half Wheel says Brazilian binder, but based on my knowledge and what I've been told, it's a Mexican San Andreas wrap or a binder leaf.
Okay.
So, and then, like I said, this wrap relief, actually, I'm drawing a blank on it just because I haven't smoked a lot of these. So, do you have that information, Steve?
Count on you, bud.
I know.
Wrap relief, I think, is an Ecuadorian Corojo 99 or
Yeah,
98.
98. That's what it was. Yeah.
There you go.
So, there's that. And then, I mean, it's just like, I don't know if for you guys, but for me, it's super dark. But you guys have the Toros, right?
It's a high, it's a Toro. It's a high priming leaf, which I think gives it a little bit more of the darkness to it. Yeah. More frank.
It's got a bunch of flavor. It's Luciano himself kind of describes this cigar as like a whole meal, if you will. So it's dense and thick, but still elegant and approachable for someone that likes, even more milder cigars, I think, and is what he was going for. But to get back to the story a little bit, basically Luciano, he and about 3 other investors have a wine that's called Mas Igneus as well, that's based out of Spain, and it's the same pH balance as the wine. So I believe that exact pH balance, which means the alkalinity and everything is balanced in the cigar itself, is 7. So
is this like Barcelona area? Is that Catalonia?
Well, Catalan, yes, in Barcelona, but the region as far as where the actual wine and the varietals of grapes are actually being grown is away from Barcelona.
And you would say this is a medium full?
I would say more medium with, kind of sometimes full, but honestly, when you get into it, it's just straight medium for me, in my mind. So
I do more medium full, but I get where you're at here. It's very rich experience here. And, what I wanted to do after hearing about it, reading about it, the fact that they tried to blend this to go with a certain offering from the winery, that M, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then they went on to say that basically that they were they think that this would go pair well with. I know we're doing whiskey tonight, but they would pair well with some of the like Malbec or Cab.
Yeah, this would go great with a cab.
And
Absolutely.
that's kind of what the whole thing is. Being a winery and everything else, they were trying to do that with that. So
any
I would
rich
definitely.
any
What's
rich
that?
red any rich red cab, really. Like if you, I mean, like you said, Steve, I mean, I've done it with Prisoner Cab, and that was absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
And I've done it with something like Apothic Red, you know, which is like a $10 or $11 bottle of red. So
Well, since you mentioned the Prisoner, I wonder how this would go with that Bardstown that was finished in the Prisoner barrels.
yeah, that'd be awesome.
That would be.
Sure.
That would be. Go ahead, Nate.
It was kind of interesting. Like, when I look at the side profile on the cigar and like hold it up to a light, like it's actually, the wrapper actually looks a little rough, and that's not a negative. Like, just the texture of it, like it's not the smoothest looking roll, but there's a nice sheen, nice oiliness to this wrapper. It's got a little bit of a velvety texture to it.
Yep.
And smoking it, and this is going to sound really weird, but I wrote this down before you started mentioning pairing it with wines.
Mm-hmm.
But I get this cranberry chocolate.
See, I get the chocolate.
I got the chocolate.
I don't know about cranberry, but I mean,
yeah, this reminds me of some of the like cranberry chocolates that I've had after a steak and wine Sunday when my wife and I are still finishing off the wine.
cranberry chocolate.
What?
Like, it's chocolate that actually has little bits of cranberry in it.
Like,
Where do you get
like
this?
A craisin?
No, cranberry.
No, what he means is plum. There's a lot of plum in there.
Come on.
And
That's better than when you usually just say dark fruit. Like, yeah, let's narrow that down by a few.
I am
Well-
concerned. I got a fucking bug.
So I think aesthetically, this is. I was excited just by looking at it before we even lit it up, Jake.
Yeah.
Gorgeous bait.
Presentation wise,
Yeah.
just absolutely beautiful. It looks like a classic cigar. It looks like a cigar that you want to have with a nice bottle of wine. You just showing joints now?
no, just like the band itself.
Oh yeah,
So-
rose gold. So is
Yeah.
this on the market now?
The cigar or the wine?
Yes.
The cigar.
Yes. Yeah. Yep. Tinderbox, you guys just got it right.
Yep. We got 4 sizes. Sorry, I'm trying to fish out a bug here out of my whiskey.
And what does this go for?
Time of the year.
What does this go for retail wise? Out of curiosity.
I think MSRP is sitting around that $13, $14 range for you, right, Steve?
That's about right. Yeah. So it's like $12.95 up to $14.95.
I think
for this
that's a steal.
Regular
Or
production?
aesthetically, what it looks like.
Is this regular production?
Yes, it's going to be regular production for Ace Prime, so you'll be able to have it whenever you want.
So is it just the 4 sizes? Do you know as far as that goes?
Yes,
We have
it's-
the
it's-
short
it's-
robusto, which is a 4.5 by 50. You have a 5 by 54, I believe, which is I forget what you call it. It's not. You don't call it a robusto.
Yeah, you have a short Robusto, 4.5 by 50, Toro, 6 by 52, and an Ancho, which is 5 by 54, and an Excelente, which is a 6 by 60.
Okay.
So
Yeah. I like this. I get the chocolate part of it. I don't know. Like I said, cranberry, I don't get as much fruit out of it. I get more oakiness out of it. I mean, I really do think this would go well with some of those red wines just because of those notes with it. Because it's got a little bit of like a dryness. It's not going to be that fruity wine. It's not going to be that, like, I see.
It's not too jammy.
Not too jammy. Like the cranberry, I get more of like a richer, again, the chocolate.
Dark chocolate.
And this
Yeah.
does lean more medium for me as well.
Does it?
Almost coffee-ish, but more medium than medium full. Maybe it's just because it's just a very smooth cigar that it's not, I don't get a lot of pepper at all. Me personally with this, not a lot of spice, just kind of just kind of right down the middle of cigar, but with some depth of flavor. I have not retrohaled it.
I think to your point, Spencer, it's interesting because like you guys smoke in a different size. Like, I mean, we talked last time I was on about how like different sizes can change your profile and how it tastes and everything. And I think like I've smoked a ton of the Robustos. And I think, me, Steve, as a Toro guy, like I love Toros. And I think
it's more smoking time for you though.
Yeah. But I think the Toros would probably have a lot. I'm smoking a Robusto right now, and I get a little bit more pepper off the Robustos, and
Yeah.
then the Toros I think would be like really, like I would say more dark chocolate. I'm getting, or I'm sorry, like milk chocolate.
Why
Like
why do you get different flavors depending on the size of the cigar? Is it because of where it hits?
Different combination of fillers and wrapper.
Okay.
Like the amount
different
of
levels of it?
like the amount of filler tobacco that's in there.
Yeah, the
So it's the
ratios.
ratio of that filler versus the wrapper.
So
Yeah.
what's kind of the rule of thumb?
What it all depends on the blend. You know, you usually hear anywhere between 60 to 80% of the flavor is from the wrapper.
I'm sorry, size wise. So if it's like a bigger cigar, do you get more or do you get less? Or
So in my experience, the bigger the ring gauge, you're getting more of the flavors from the fillers, obviously, because there's so much more of them. And a lot of times that's where they'll, especially if it's a heavier cigar, that's where they'll put more of that Ligero tobacco, because you don't really use Ligero as a wrapper leaf because it's not that combustible, or not as combustible as the Viso and Seiko are.
Yeah.
But then, you know, a lot of cigar purists or whatever, like they love Coronas or Lanceros because you're smoking so much less filler and more wrapper leaf in terms of the ratio. So you know, that, and we've talked about this before, on any handmade cigar you see, the leaf that is used for the wrapper costs more than all the other tobacco in that cigar combined, because it's got to have the right look. You don't grow, you know, the farms don't produce as much wrapper leaf as everything else. I think I talked about that in the intermission last week, where like even the closed door or closed-sided barns where they can, you know, open up planks or open up windows to try and control the temperature and humidity, you know, even those are only producing about 30% wrapper. So a lot of what they're producing is that filler or binder. So there's less of it. There's less wrapper leaf, and it's also got to have, you know, it's got to have the right look, the right color. You know, you don't want to use a wrapper leaf that's got a bunch of sunspots on it, especially on a premium cigar. You know, a $12 to $15 smoke, you don't want to sit there and, you know, be looking at it and see a bunch of these little green or yellow sunspots on it, or burn spots from the fermentation. So,
would you say the wrapper was on this, Jake?
It's a Habano Corojo
Corojo.
99.
What does the number mean?
That was the year that seed.
Oh, the year of that seed.
Yeah,
Wow.
that strain.
Before Steve talked about this recently, before that blue mold hit Cuba. Yep. Like, so you have the 99 Corojo, the 98 Criollo. Those are two different seed strains.
I'm sorry, this is the 98, not the 99. My apologies.
What's that? 98, yeah.
98 Corojo, 99
Yep.
Criollo.
Criollo, yeah.
So, Jake, you smoking more cigars or less cigars in this new gig?
Honestly, probably less. If I had to, I mean, I'm just taking a wild guess, but that's just because of the traveling. You know, I'm not
moving around.
Yeah, I'm not at a, you know, shop for 10 hours and just like lighting one up right after another. So, I mean, I'll smoke like in my car when I'm driving, obviously, but like something like last week where I'm in a rental car all week and I'm flying, and, you know, I only have like a cigar or two a day. So,
Flying in that private jet with crowned heads, right? You can smoke on that.
yeah, no.
That's nice. That's nice.
Must be nice.
Only when Miguel's on. Only when Miguel's with me.
You guys have released a lot recently. Where does this fall in? I mean, as far as, you know, I'm not going to put you on the spot too much, but I mean, of your recent releases, I mean, is this one of your like top from that? Because I know you guys came out with, you know, a few things at the show, this being one of them. This is the first one I've seen in the wild. Las Calaveras was the last one that I saw hit this year's Las Calaveras.
I mean, as far as like my opinion, or just like what I've seen like on the road.
Your opinion first, yeah.
My opinion, honestly, the first time I smoked this, I didn't really care for it because it was just like a pepper bomb at the beginning, and I don't know. But I think like the cigars, especially like the ones that I've gotten in my road stock and the bundles, I think they've been able to rest for a couple weeks, and the flavor profiles have been really able to mingle within the different tobaccos that's in the cigar itself. So it's really came out to be an amazing cigar. in my opinion, what we released at the show, we released the Pie Synesthesia and the Bosphorus coming from Tim Osgener, Family Cigars. And that's another entity of Crowned Heads as well. And then we came out with the Sfumato, which was a Connecticut, which I thought was fantastic. And then you had the Mas Igneus and Maria Lucia, which was also part of Luciano and Ace Prime, which was a PCA exclusive.
Okay.
So there was a lot to learn, when I came on, because I went right from yeah. But as far as in my opinion, I think the Pie Synesthesia was our best cigar that came out of the PCA.
That was the PCA exclusive?
No,
That was that was one of the Tim's very exclusive run. They only did 2,500 boxes, and they were 12 count boxes.
Of course, you'd like the exclusive one.
Yeah, right.
That seems on brand there.
It's a classy MFer, dude.
But the Bosphorus, from as far as a popular opinion, the Bosphorus, like Tim's other one, has been like the showstopper.
Okay, so we'll have to get you on the show with that one then next.
Yeah, and I'd love to. Fucking dog.
What are you doing to that dog, man?
Well, whatever.
I don't know what that means.
Is that your dog?
No, I'm in
because it's your dog.
As you can see, the apartments behind me here.
It's beautiful.
But no, I think this is definitely, the more I smoke this is a close second to the Bosphorus at this point. So, or a third, I guess my third
Close
out
third.
of the lineup.
Rounding out the bronze medal there.
Yeah. Well, it's got rose gold on it, so
it's rose gold, not bronze.
It's I'd say this one, I don't want to say it's tough to pair. Are you drinking the same thing we are, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yep.
Okay, I like that.
Yep. I really honestly couldn't believe when Steve said that. I was like, I think I got one of those.
Yeah.
So
I think this cigar is going to be one that, with some whiskeys at least, with some it'll be a hit or miss pairing with this cigar, just because of some of the, I'd say, yes, kind of balanced, but I think there are some strong notes that are standing out and
Of the cigar.
Yeah. And I also think, like I mentioned earlier, kind of like a drier red wine, it does have some of that finish characteristics that would be shared well with that. So some of these that, like, if you had a bottle that had a lot of spice or cinnamon, I'm not looking forward to trying that.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah, like a house cab or something like that.
Well, I'm going back to like ryes and
like whiskeys,
bourbons or whiskeys that have like that mint finish, or that like that real heat, like the cinnamon finish. I don't think I'd want to go back and forth. I think I'm going to kind of get just overload, almost like a burnout there, almost like a tongue bite, if you will, from hitting those.
I think it would remind me, like, if we tried to do something with like a higher proof bourbon, like what we tried to do with like Booker's and the Oliva V, like way back when.
I don't think this would go well with that Elijah Craig pick that you were part of when you were still at Burn.
No, I don't think so either. And that's like the first thing that I think that whiskey pairs well with anything that you throw at it. But this would be the first one that I would say I don't think it would do it justice.
This isn't to discourage anyone from trying this. I smoked this without any alcohol. I had just water basically the first time I had it, and I really enjoyed it. I do think there's a lot of flavor there, but again, I do like those types of red wines. And I don't know, honestly, I think I would probably really search to get there, but the fact that there is some literature out there on what the project was about, I think that I immediately started connecting the dots there, and I enjoyed it because I do like those types of wines on their own, just sipping, you know what I mean? As far as it doesn't have to go with certain foods or anything like that. I like to I can just sip on a bottle of a drier cab or a Malbec. I like it with things, but I do like it on its own. So I think that's where I'm at with this.
I think the cigar stands alone.
It can.
Yeah. Doesn't need anything with. I think the cigar you're right. It is like a meal. You called it at the beginning. The cigar has enough oomph in it that stands alone. That is, you could just drink this with, or eat this cigar without anything else.
What I think,
Smoke it, you mean?
How are you doing it?
what I also think, what I also think
Spencer
is
tried
nice.
both of the
Elijah Craig was delicious earlier.
Well, there you go.
He tried another one as well from the Bourbon Collective, thanks to Austin Mayberry.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
No, I think what's interesting about the cigar is we were talking about like some of those chocolate or dark chocolate flavors we were getting on the palate with the cigar, but surprisingly, through the nose on the retrohale, there's actually quite a bit of spice to this cigar as well.
There's a ton of pepper.
See, I was going to say spice more than like black pepper.
Yeah, it's more of a spice. Yeah,
Like a baking spice.
baking spices. Yeah.
Very, very end, it's got that little bit of black pepper showing its face.
Yeah. But I mean,
more like,
it's a little bit in that sense that you're not getting the spice on the palate. It's kind of like the cigar we featured last week, where it didn't have a whole lot of spice on the palate, if any. But then through the nose, at one point, you actually started sneezing, Steve, because there was so much spice through the nose on that cigar. Yeah, this one, like if you're not someone who retrohales on a regular basis and you start getting into this cigar, and then all of a sudden you decide, it's going to catch you off guard a little bit because the retrohale is so different than the flavor you're getting on the palate.
Jake, you selling any of these?
Do what?
Are you selling any of these?
Yeah.
Do people know what they're buying, or is it up to the cigar shop to kind of explain the story behind it because it doesn't have the Crown Head's name behind it? It just looks like a sexy cigar.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's up to me, and that's part of my job is like teaching, and I mean, that's what I do is drive around and go to different shops, and I think it's part of my job, an important part of my job, where I need to explain the story, talk about the not to over romanticize the cigar, but I mean, let's face it, like that's part of the business.
Yeah, tell the story.
And telling the story and allowing people to really fall in love with the story of the cigar and smoking it and realizing that it is a great cigar. And it's not just something else on the market that, since I've been on the road, like I've been talking to a bunch of shops, and I think everybody in the cigar community thinks the same as far as, there's so many cigars out there, and, every brand and every company tries to distinguish themselves the right way from the rest of the pack. And I think Luciano did that with the Mas Igneus. I think
you got a story to tell with this one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Talk about the wine region, talk about the pH, talk about, that it's...
Do you know if that wine is available in the States?
It is not yet.
Okay.
It has not distributed
That's a shame.
yet. It's they came up with the idea in 2021. And I know that they're working with, Luciano and his partners are working with distributors across the United States. As far as like being like Ohio based, and like like you guys and we have always talked about the struggles that Ohio faces with their liquor board and trying to get stuff into the state itself. So
I didn't know if it was available in any states or in
Not
the
yet.
states in general.
Not yet.
But yeah, I mean, I think the story is a big one. I did have a question for you because it's as you guys have expanded this relationship and the fact that you're, as a Crowned Heads rep, you guys are distributing this. How are you not, in a sense, bastardizing the whole Ace Prime Crowned Heads distinction? Because I'll tell you, from my vantage point being in the retail side of it, people still don't know what Ace Prime is. Pichardo was really their first one. I know Mil Diaz was a popular one, but most people that I've talked to, and maybe it's just, again, from the retail standpoint of where we're at, they think of that as a Crowned Head cigar. It's a collaboration with Pichardo. You had the Pichardo line that came out in, I believe, 4, maybe 5 different blends, only in the Toro size was the first effort. You guys did the Juarez with them, but that was a Crowned Heads product, if you will, made at Ace Prime. And now you have stuff like this. And like I said, the Mil Diaz before that, you have some more stuff coming out. You got the Ozinger stuff coming out. Is there, I mean, I know you're new at the company, but I mean, when you're selling this, are you seeing the same thing? Then when I sell this, a Mas Igneus, if I say it's from Ace Prime, who? If I say,
Right.
yeah, this is a new
That was
one.
my question.
This is a new one from Pichardo and like the Pichardo factory and Crowned Heads. This is the new Crowned Heads. I mean, it's like, is there, are you seeing that again? I think it's nice getting your perspective, not having Miguel on,
Yes.
who was on last time, because it's in a sense you get like that first impressions. You're learning all this stuff. You're getting it out to the customers. Do they know who Pichardo or the Pichardo factory is? They know Luciano. I think it was smart to put out that Luciano, the Dreamer, with his name on there, because it did actually get a different name out there. But again, is that looked at as a Crowned Heads product? I mean, it's just kind of, I feel like there's some grayness from the perspective of the consumer on where this line is. How hard is the line? Is it Crowned Heads products? Is Crowned Heads distributing Ace Prime? Is Ace Prime? I know they have their own social media. I mean, it's just a lot there that is kind of being, I feel, a little bit like muddy waters there.
Yeah, and I agree. And it is hard to, being new, it's hard to discuss that and make clear lines and define everything. To be completely honest with you, I haven't even mentioned Ace Prime or Osgener Family Cigars. I just say Crowned Heads. I'm Jake with Crowned Head. When I first meet somebody, I don't say, hey, my name is Jake Sanders with Crowned Heads, Ace Prime, and Osgener Family Cigars.
Yeah.
I
Makes
just
it sound like you're a broker.
Right. Well, people ask me that a lot. If they don't know me, they ask if I'm a broker, and I'm not. It's the correct verbiage is Mas Igneus is produced by Ace Prime and the Tabacalera Pichardo factory and distributed by Crowned Heads. But if we're just talking, us guys and everybody that's listening, I just say, it's coming out of Crowned Heads. Yeah. So Crowned Heads is distributing, and that's our new line. So
I'll be interested to see where that line gets a little bit drawn a little bit harder. You know what I mean? As far as the separation there, as Ace Prime tries to get a bigger name for themselves, but again, using you as a rep or a sales system, I think I'll be interested to see how far that goes, or does it kind of get consolidated under the Crowned Heads line?
Yeah, me too.
Crowned Heads has been a big thing about it. You guys were working with 4 different manufacturers prior to this, right? Or 3, I think, prior to that. Yeah. And adding in the Pichardo factory.
Yeah, I mean, mostly it's, it was my father's, it was, Don Pepin and my father's, it was Ernesto Perez Carrillo, Drew Estate did the La Coalición.
Yeah.
So, Lost
and Buckeye Land.
And a Buckeye Land. So it's stuff like that where, like I said, to make my job a little more easy, it's to make it simple for the shops. This is Crowned Heads' new product. So, it's Ace Prime, but Crowned Heads is distributing. So.
Okay.
Yep. I hope that answers your question. I know
it does. I think I didn't really expect, the hard lines there, especially, again, I think that if we had Miguel back on here, he might kind of say the same thing, is that it's kind of creating, it's like the whole carve your own path type thing. I feel as though you guys are trying to do that.
Yeah.
And I think it'll just be more of a business situation as far as what the decisions are made on how to separate those different brands.
Yeah.
But again, I feel as though it's almost like in harmony, hopefully, that you'll see it being Crowned Heads is kind of the parent from the consumer side of it, is the parent company that is working with these different manufacturers. They represent these lines.
Exactly.
And business side, where the money, flows, I don't know how that would work. But
answer this, how do you and Nate feel as far as when you talk about Hoya de Nicaragua, and all the products that Drew Estate distributes? They own that, but it's under a different name.
Yeah, they've differentiated a while back. You know what I mean? Some people don't even know that Drew Estate makes anything other than fused cigars, right? So they've got their own identity crisis over there as far as the consumer's viewpoint. I mean, I know Altadis is the actual parent company of all their different brands, and General as well. I'm not saying that you're going to go to that level. I'm trying to think of a good example of something like this. Because, even like Tatuaje is its own entity, but everything's made by my father.
Right.
And they're and that's, but they are separate. But they mostly go through brokers. So again, there's some more muddying of the waters there. So
MGP,
like MGP, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to ask, does Ace Prime have any cigars that they make that are not distributed through Crown Heads?
No.
Okay.
So I mean, it's all under the Crown Heads umbrella.
Yeah. It's just an interesting, way to look, something to look at, I guess. That's all I was curious about.
Sorry
I
about
will
all the noise, guys.
It's a way for them to get their own factory without having their own factory.
Again, not sure how the money's flowing there, as far as that goes. So I thought this was an interesting. We don't have a box with us. I don't think you do either. You probably get the trunk stock. So I did have a question about this while we have you. This is a really we haven't had it more than a few days, so we didn't have any empty boxes yet. I thought about bringing one just to show it.
Box
it's a
is
very
beautiful.
Interesting box. It's I'm trying to remember what the top. It's a little rustic. I think it kind of gives that wine cellar look to it, but then instead of a flip top or a slide top, there is a little rope handle.
Can I send you a picture, Steve, and you can post it?
I'm actually pulling up one, trying to find.
It's tough to do without having it prepped prior to. No, it's fine. But you pull out the hand, like the rope handle on the side of the box. Yeah. You pull it out, which I thought was beautiful. My first question for those that have like a walk-in humidor: how do you display that? It'll take up twice the. If you pull that out,
I've seen. Well, I mean, basically, it's a box inside of a box.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, and then you pull on the rope, and it pulls out
like a drawer.
It's elegant. Yeah,
it's like
very elegant,
like a drawer. It says Moss Igneus in black on the top, and it's made out of Spanish cedar. So it's like some of the best cedar. I mean, when you open the box, it reminded me a lot of something that you would smell out of like a Christian Aroa factory or something.
I thought the same. Yeah,
just like a beautiful cedar smell. The box is actually pretty thick, but I mean, that little rope is kind of a bitch. I mean, I'll admit that. I think I've seen people, they've just stuffed it on there. I've seen them cut the rope off.
I like the rope. I just thought, like, if I'm pulling that out and I'm setting it on, the real estate on a walk-in humidor.
Yeah.
I didn't know, depending on, I guess, the angle of the shelf they put it on, they could maybe put the box top behind it, you know what I mean? Or the box shell behind it, and have that there. Or when it comes down to it, you have the boxes, nearby or stacked up, and then you just pull the drawer all the way out and set that there with the rope on the side. It's a really cool presentation.
But as far as being applicable, I get it.
Yeah,
go ahead. Sorry.
I was gonna say for shops like ours that have it in bins, it's gonna be a great equalizer there. But I have brought the box out since it's so new.
Yeah.
We get the what's new type of a thing. I've brought it out, and there have been some very positive remarks about the that's kind of interesting. That's cool. As I slide the drawer out, if you will.
Yeah. So
great design as far as presentation.
Agreed.
Practicality from a retail standpoint, it's a little tougher. So it's just it's as you're designing these things, everyone. I mean, it's sometimes even the slide top boxes that don't have somewhere to put it. You know what I mean? It's like you just slide it open, you set the rest of the box there, and then the top is gone. You know what I mean? I assume it's going to look a little bit like that.
Yeah, I agree. And I think honestly too, like how some people turn the boxes sideways.
Yeah.
And make, more vertical.
Yeah.
On a shelf. I think that would be good too. I think honestly, in my opinion, I haven't spoken to Luciano about the cigar much since the trade show, but I believe that the presentation, besides pulling it out of the box and having this big thing on the shelf, the cigar itself is supposed to speak on its own.
I think it does.
You have the M. If you look up a picture of the Moss Igneus wine coming out of Spain, it's the same logo. It's the same.
To be the same, yeah.
It's the same M. It's the same rose gold coloring. It almost has this, it looks almost identical, except it's on a wine bottle.
Mm-hmm.
So I think when you're looking at it on a shelf standpoint. The cigar should stand on its own, and it should speak for itself. So, in my mind, I think that's what Luciano was going for.
Yeah, that does have a lingering. It finishes with pepper, man.
Yeah,
these retros, and it's like all of a sudden I'm about to say something. All of a sudden it's like, no, hang on a second, hang on.
I think it's interesting that they did a 6x60 in this cigar because when we had Jake and Miguel on recently, I think we were talking about the Las Calaveras, Miguel was talking about how a lot of their cigars, like they do 4 sizes. They do a Robusto, a Corona Gorda, because they're really known for that Corona Gorda. They have something along the lines of a Toro and then a double Robusto. And they figure you're going to carry Robusto, you're going to carry the Corona Gorda, and then you pick really, you want Toro or that double Robusto, which is a little bit longer but thinner than the Toro. And, and shops kind of settled down to 3 sizes. He didn't mention about making 6x60s, and yet this cigar comes in a 6x60.
And I've smoked one, Nate, and it's like pretty crazy how the
60?
Yeah, how the different profiles. The only thing that I could kind of put it up to is how, the BS Silver,
between that Rubito and the big one.
Yes.
Very
so different. So like that pepper in that 660, like I know not a ton of like cigar guys like 6x60s, but I think
they sell.
Yeah, they sell. And I think they sell. I think that was a good call on the size. 2, I think that the pepper is just enough on that 6x60 that it really, really is an elegant, very approachable, smooth smoke. So if you guys got the 6x60s, Steve, I believe, So I would urge all 3 of you and everybody listening to try that one out, or try all sizes out. Go in and try them all out.
I tell you, I was saying, and I think the first time I tried this blend with a bottle of Cab or Malbec or maybe even Zinfandel, I would go with the 4.5 by 50 just to get probably the most punch out of it. I'd imagine that's coming out of that.
Yeah.
They call it a short Robusto.
Yeah.
I'll let you know this weekend how that goes.
There you go.
I'll grab a couple different sizes of this cigar and open up a bottle of wine when I'm not at the shop. And
Kristen's out of town this week, and I might dip into the wine down in the basement.
I was going to invite you over to my house.
Oh, well, maybe.
I've got a wine rack.
Yeah.
You guys are really putting in the work, huh? Just really putting in the effort.
You got a nice rack too there, Nate.
Yeah.
All right.
Jeez.
You got 2. That's weird.
Wine racks.
Yeah. Spencer?
No, please continue talking about racks, gentlemen. It's great. I like watching a sunset on Jake's face. Beautiful.
It is nice.
Yeah. Just a little you. Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm a fan. I really enjoy this cigar.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah. I'm a big fan. And we've obviously had a lot of cigars on this. And not just saying this because you're a friend, but I think this is a fantastic cigar. I would like to try some of the different sizes, but I just think aesthetically, it's a beautiful cigar.
It is.
Well,
The wrapper is
and
beautiful.
I'm glad you guys are getting to try it now. Like I said, and I know I work for the company, but like I don't have a problem with being honest. Like the first time I tried it, I didn't really care for it because it had a ton of pepper in it. Steve, I think you actually would have liked it a little more because it had that kind of like Rubito, BS Silver like punch to it as far as the black pepper goes. Now I think it's really mellowed out, and like I said at the beginning, that the tobaccos, you get to taste that Dominican filler in it, and that Corojo 98 wrapper is really shining a little more, and the flavors have mingled together.
Well, and to your expense, we had you on, I think, last year, and that was when you were still working at Burn by Rocky Patel in Indianapolis, and we featured a Rocky Patel cigar, and Jake had commented before the podcast that he likes that we put the manufacturers on the spot when we do the ratings, whether it be the bourbon, the master distiller.
I said that earlier tonight before.
Oh, that was you. Yeah, Spencer. My bad. Spencer had said that he likes that we put the manufacturers of the reps on the spot.
Yeah.
And when Jake was on and we did a Rye Patel cigar, he actually rated that particular cigar a 6. And his, and I think we were all, the rest of us on the panel that night were a little bit higher. But
he knows the difference.
I'm not
that
gonna
just
lie.
wasn't his palate.
Like,
you know the levels.
Right.
You know how good it can be.
Yeah. Like the cigar that I always used to smoke at Burn was the Edge Crojo Torpedo. I freaking love that cigar, and it's $8, $9.
Yeah.
So that just goes to show that it doesn't have to be a $15 or $20 cigar for someone to enjoy it.
Absolutely. All right, let's switch gears here. If you want to stay on for the rest of part 1 here.
Yeah, if that's. I'm already here, so.
You're welcome for the whole show. I just, like I said, don't want to take away one of your nights at home, and I know it's getting dark, and
I'm lighting up another one because I already smoked my other.
Perfect.
So
we are drinking. Nate, what are we drinking? It's Redemption here.
This is the Redemption Rum Cask Reserve.
Okay.
What batch is yours, Nate? Sorry,
3.
3. Mine is 2. So good.
So
Really?
well, and
Wow.
I could tell by the label because if you actually look up this bottle, the first 2 batches had a very different label on them.
Okay.
It looked a little bit more like that chicken cock island rooster that we had recently, where it was a white label with some bright colors around the edges.
Okay.
And the script was very colorful on it. So this one is more, that soft tan type of label on it. So yes, they did change the label for batch 3. Batch 1 came out in March of 2020. So they did a batch in 2020, batch 2021, and then batch 3 is 2022.
So, Nate, can you tell us a little bit about the bottle itself?
So
About Redemption, I guess.
So Redemption, Redemption's actually a fairly new label. They've only been around since I think it was 2010 or 2012, 2015, around there. They source all their stuff from MGP. So this is actually a rye that is finished in rum cask, and we actually see that quite a bit in the industry. Like Angel's Envy is another one that's a rye finished in Caribbean rum cask.
Well, you just mentioned, Greg Snyder was on, with the Island Rooster, which was the chicken cock rye.
It's the rye finished in rum. For some reason, rye just takes on some of that rum barrel characteristic better than bourbon does. But this is an MGP rye, so it's a 95.5 mash bill. They do not disclose the age of the rye before it goes into the rum cask.
Okay.
But they do say that it is in that rum cask for at least 3 months before it is bottled.
Okay.
This is coming in at 94 proof, I believe.
Yep, 94.
And when batch 1 first came out, that was about a $35 bottle. And then now this one in the state of Ohio, this is coming in at $45.
Okay.
$44.99.
It's fair price.
Yeah, I was just going to say that seems
Which
fair.
when you look at like the 2 rum finish ryes that we just talked about, Angel's Envy, that's a $95 bottle.
Correct.
The Island Rooster, that's a $200 bottle.
Right.
Part of that's because they do a lot less of that. They only did 23 rum barrels.
Do we know the mash on this?
95.5 rye.
Not.
So 95.
Really?
So 95% rye, 5% malted barley.
Yeah.
And then it's which is that typical MGP rye mash bill that we see them produce for a lot of different labels. And so, like I said, they don't disclose the age of the rye itself, but it's in the rum cask at least 3 months. And part of the reason they say at least 3, so rum cask you can reuse those multiple times, but obviously every time, because you're taking some of the flavors out of the cask, depending on where it is in the rick house, how many times that barrel's been used as a finishing barrel, you're gonna have to let that whiskey sit in there a little bit longer in order to hit that same level of consistency.
Do they wash it out, or do they just use a new one every time they go? Like, do they wash out the barrel?
Well, so like when we had
Which
Greg
barrel?
Snyder, on
barrel,
recently,
if you use
finishing
the rum
barrel.
yeah. Do they wash that rum barrel out?
so when we had Greg Snyder on, he talked about when they did the first run in those 23 rum casks, it sat for about 6 months in those casks. Then when they used it again, it actually had to sit about a month longer in order to be able to pull out the same level of flavor and have a consistent product between both batches of that product that they did.
Yeah, so it's up to, obviously, in that case, the distiller. And again, this is all coming from MGP. Do you know the process? I mean, like, is MGP doing the entire process, or was that not in the literature?
So so Redemption has not a master distiller, but a master blender.
Okay.
So, because Redemption, they have a bourbon, they have a rye, they have a high rye bourbon.
Okay.
Then they also have, I think, 18-year bourbon as well. So it's all coming
What's
out
that there? The high rye.
He's got
there.
the high rye. Yeah, Jake's got the high rye.
I like that
bourbon.
one actually.
So, well, and the other interesting, so like a lot of the Redemption stuff, their regular, bourbon rye, high rye bourbon, they're all like $30 and under. Like I said, this one comes in at 45. I think they also have a wheated. I forgot they have a wheated bourbon.
Okay.
I think the 18-year comes in around $90 for that one, and that's got a little bit different
look.
look.
An 18-year for $90.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, but yeah. So MGP is the one who is distilling all the juice, and then the folks at Redemption are working with them in, they're picking out the Jamaican and the Barbadian rum casks that they want to use, and they're working with MGP to then empty the rye barrels into the rum barrels and then storing that, and then it's up to that master blender at Redemption to blend it and hit the flavor
this is
profile.
A small batch.
I don't think so.
So because Jake said it many times when he was a co-host on the podcast. There's really no definition of what a small batch is.
So all these Redemptions are pretty much going to taste the same, no matter if it's a 3 or 4. But you said that 1s and 2s tasted very different than this.
I mean, they are doing
different label
batches. They are doing
they had different
batches.
labels. So the only way to tell whether or not this is different in the flavor profile versus batch 1 or 2 is if you actually had one of those first 2 batches and compared it to this. They may be trying to find the same flavor profile for every single batch, or they may be, like how some places do their single barrel picks. They may be trying to find a different flavor profile every time they do a batch.
Okay, gotcha.
It does say cask series on there, so I assume there's going to be others.
Yeah. So I guess it could be a small batch.
What's that?
I guess it could be a small batch. As
I
far
maybe
as the
figure doing
series.
batches. Yeah, it's like exactly. Like we have barrel spirits.
Yeah.
Barrel bourbon.
Yeah.
You've got like everything they do is a batch number, right? And everything's different on there. So I don't think there's a whole lot of I don't know, trying to mask that. I think it's great. I do like the bottle. This is one of those what do they call it? Where it's got the curve in the back. It is kind of like the chicken
flask.
The flask bottle.
bottle.
Yeah, this is a 5th, but it's like that flask feel. Like it's easy
a
in the
little
hand.
curved on the back side
Curved
of
on the
it,
back.
rounded on the sides.
Correct. It's got, I do like also if you see on the bottle.
Yeah, it's got that grain embossed in the glass, and then
It's pre-prohibition.
It's got like the gold leaf and the barrels and then the trees, the palm trees on the label.
Yeah, but
which
I'm
is
talking
nice.
about in the glass itself on the bottom.
Oh, yeah, I didn't even see that. Yeah, it looks like
so
a rye.
Got some
looks like rye
subtleties
grain.
there that I like.
Nice.
Yeah, the presentation's really nice. You've got rum cask finish on the I don't know if they call it a cliche like you do in the cigar world, but the kind of sticker that goes across the top that you break when you crack the bottle.
Like a tax stamp.
Tax stamp, exactly. And then again on the top it's got a beautiful cork where it says pre-prohibition whiskey revival redemption on there.
Well, do you know why they call it pre-prohibition whiskey revival?
No, Nate, would you enlighten us?
So prior to prohibition, rye whiskey was the #1 spirit in the U.S.
There you go.
There you go. Jake, do you know that?
See,
I didn't want to ruin it for you guys, but that is why they call it that.
Thank you,
Glad,
Spencer.
yeah, glad to have Spencer on
I just
tonight.
like to give Nate.
Yeah.
I just like to give Nate the credit.
I
That's nice.
definitely
Yeah, but
would have
that's
had
one-
no idea that's what it was.
But that's one of the reasons why Redemption is, paid so much attention to using rye in their products.
Mhm.
The rye, the high rye, and then this rye that's finished in rum casks, because that used to be the number one spirit 100 years ago.
Yeah.
Have you guys done other redemptions on the podcast?
We have not. I've wanted to for a while,
Yeah.
but we just haven't done those.
I like his Blue Label one. That's actually
high rye bourbon?
Yes,
Yeah.
because I get more rye flavor out of that than I do out of this one personally.
Well, I think that's intentional, right? Obviously.
Yeah.
What do you think of this, Spencer?
Of the bourbon.
Yeah.
Of the bourbon.
It's not a bourbon.
It's not a bourbon.
It's
No,
rye
this
whiskey.
is the rye.
It,
So it's a rye 95.5. So it's 95%
To
rye.
be a bourbon, you have to be at least 51% corn.
There's
Okay.
no corn in this.
Fair enough.
So
Okay.
it's a rye whiskey that's finished in rum
So I
casks.
will say it's very smooth, very drinkable, easy sipper. It'll be interesting to see what people's scores are on the pairings, because I think it could go two different ways. One, that the cigar overwhelms the bourbon, but also it could be that if you're focusing on the cigar, which I think we are tonight.
Yeah.
I think that this episode showcases the cigar over the bourbon personally.
Yeah. This is not overpowering the cigar.
Right. But I think this is an easy sipper, all day sipper, very smooth. I would just say not very memorable for me
Ooh.
personally.
So what I will say as a disclaimer, what was interesting is that before we did the show, you came over, half hour earlier than the show started where you had this. So you did have two small pours of two different Elijah Craig barrel picks. So you had 126 proof and 125 proof and
126.5 and 126.7.
and some change. But I mean, you went from that, and then I remember when you first took a sip of this, you're like, wow, there's not much there.
There's not much there, but now that I haven't had that for a little
It's
bit,
coming
now
out.
I'm starting to get the flavor. I'm trying to appreciate it for what it is versus some of the other stuff that we had earlier.
What flavors are you getting?
Out of this? I don't get a lot of caramel. I don't get a lot of vanilla-ish out of it. I don't get a lot of flavor out of this, to be honest with you. And that might be, my palate might be a little burnt off from earlier, but I'm not getting a ton of flavor out of the actual bourbon.
Between the two pours and this cigar, it's two different realms,
Yeah.
right? Again, you're going down not only in proof, but again, it's totally different. I think there's more sweetness in
There's
this.
definitely more sweetness, which I like. I think
It's-
this would be a good cocktail too, if you made a cocktail out of this.
It would
definitely.
be. But I do
Definitely.
think it's nice drinking on its own. I would say it's
For summer, for a night like tonight, I think
it's
fantastic.
enjoyable.
Yes.
I think you are on point where you kind of blasted your palate with the higher proof Elijah Craig picks. This cigar, what we've been talking about with the fact that, it's really meant to be paired with some of the different reds. Much like if you paired this with but if you paired this with like a Pinot Noir or something like that, it's a little sweeter and stuff. I don't like you'd get a similar contrast there. So, again, this is something that the show tonight was, I don't want to say pieced together. We had a new cigar, come in. I wanted to feature that for Crowned Heads and Ace Prime. Wanted it for you guys out there that haven't heard of this cigar yet. It's something that's out there. Hopefully your brick and mortars are getting it in. It's something to try. I think this is just showing, again, to your point, Spencer, where the ratings will be at as far as the pairing. This bottle on its own, if you set the cigar down just for a couple of like maybe 3 sips, Spencer, just kind of just let it
I like the smell.
be on its own.
I do like the smell.
The aroma's nice for sure.
Jake, what do you think, man? Of the bourbon itself.
Yeah.
Of the whiskey itself, excuse me.
The rye. I mean, it's really interesting, like coming off of the same concept of what like Angel's Envy did like a long time ago, like first started. I think Angel's Envy started this process as far as finishing stuff, especially their rye finished in rum
Right.
casks. It's definitely lighter. At 94 proof, it's I think it's a little bit underaged in my mind. I would have liked to seen. I don't know how long it was aged for in the rum cask. Did you say that earlier, Nate? Or
No, they
3
do
months,
not
at least 3
disclose.
months?
They do not disclose the age of the rye itself. Just that it spends at least 3 months in the rum cask.
Right.
okay, yeah. I mean, I would have liked to seen at least 9 months, but it's product, so you got to get it out.
Jake, you see who's listening here?
Yeah, one of my bosses.
Yeah, you're on the clock, sir. It went from doing us a favor. Now you're on the clock. Luciano, thank you very much for tuning in. Good evening to you. We've been talking about the new cigar here, the Mas Igneus.
Yep.
So we just spoke about that and talked about it probably about a good 45 minutes. So we moved on, but we're happy to have you join us, and we love your work and appreciate everything you're doing right now.
Yep, I agree. It's my second one.
That's right.
As far as the rye finished in rum cask, it's definitely, the cigar is overpowering the spirit tonight. I don't think that happens a lot on like Bourbon and BS or other shows for the most part, just because high proof is the name of the game anymore. But it's kind of an interesting pairing. I know we'll get into that like later on, but just the spirit on its own, it's kind of got this. I mean, I actually get more of a I get the spiced rum characteristics.
Yeah.
Like something like from I know like Flor de Caña is not like known as like a spiced rum, but like as far as, or spiced at all. But that's what it kind of reminds me of, which is funny because who mentioned that on the last one I was on? Somebody said the Miguel's tasted like Flor de Caña.
Yeah, I think both Tyler and Jack were like, "What the fuck are you talking about?"
Yeah. Well,
Did Nate do that?
it
I'm
was
sorry,
it was
Nate.
me because I wasn't saying it tasted like Flor de Caña. It was just that it didn't have that artificial sweetener added to it like some of the other rums we had featured when Miguel was on. So it had just, a little bit of sweetness, a little bit of dryness to it, but a little bit more pure of what rum should be, without that artificially flavored stuff
I
added
get
to
a
it.
lot of like praline style, like candy and like vanilla off of this, as far as off the nose.
I get a spicy butterscotch.
Yeah.
Spicy
Yeah.
Butterscotch. All right.
Yeah.
For me,
It's like
when it first
Werther's
hits,
original spicy.
for me, when it first hits the palate,
Good grandpa.
Yeah, but when your grandfather's Werther's doesn't cut it,
Aren't hot enough.
when you want to punch it up a notch.
I mean, but what are you guys drinking out of? Do you have a Glencairn, Nate?
we all do. We all do.
Oh, really? Okay. So, I mean, I don't know. I kind of stuck my nose down in there and I got a big proof whiff, if you will. So
Explain that.
like the proof just kind of hit me up the nose, but I think it has to do with like retrohaling the cigar so much tonight.
Yeah.
So
It's opened up that, yeah.
but my tongue, like from the cigar, and like, I mean, there's like, how like your flavor profile on your tongue is. I think it's your sweet taste buds are on your sides, the spiciness is in the middle, and then I forget what the tip of your tongue is, but I mean, it's all like right in the center of my tongue, like based off of the smoke from the cigar and trying to get any type of notes and experience out of this spirit.
For me, when it first hit the palate, I got a little bit of clove from the whiskey. A little bit of clove up front, but then as it sat on my palate and then also at the finish, I get a little bit of honey. So obviously not as deep and dark a flavor as caramel. A little bit of honey and then just a slight mint flavor as well on the finish.
I get some grassy notes. Like
From
young,
the whiskey?
yeah, like young.
You think it's a little bright? I think it's a little bright.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, not citrusy, just bright.
Yeah.
Yeah, just like, yeah. It's young. It's young whiskey, you can tell. Or they just watered it down. Maybe it was like really high proof old whiskey and they just watered it down to 94 proof. I don't know. So
Well, I do have the flavor notes pulled up of what Redemption says this is.
Let's hear it. Yeah.
I bet it says clove on there.
So on the nose,
It's actually on the front of the bottle as well. Did you read that?
I'll let you read the front.
Oh,
of the
does
bottle.
it really? I'm sorry.
Yeah, on the front of the bottle gives some notes.
So on the nose, it says dried stone fruit, apricot and persimmon,
Apricot.
clover, honey, baking spice, clove, and caraway.
Called clove.
Okay. On the palate, rye spice notes of caraway, clove.
What's caraway for those of us that don't know that are idiots that were public high school?
Yeah, I have no
it's
idea.
like a seed.
Is that the seed in rye?
No.
No.
It's like a seed.
Yeah.
It's not giving me a
It's not,
flavor.
like it's not a leaf like oregano
Get you a
or
steak of caraway.
It's a nut.
I don't know.
well, and look it up on your phone. You got to Google.
I was asking you.
Rice. I'm reading their flavor notes. Rye spice of caraway, clove, white pepper, complemented by tropical rum notes of sultana raisins, guava, and passion fruit. The Barbadian cask gives a warming richness up front, while the Jamaican casks impart an earthy, fruity finish on the back end. And then the finish, light and breathy with golden raisins dusted in a whisper of Ceylon cinnamon
Jesus Christ.
with different lengths of finish that help balance the sweetness of the younger barrels. So Jake called that. With the soft tannin and baking spice of the longer finish.
Is this off of their website or is this
off
off?
off of the
this
Redemption
is a
website.
romantic novel about it.
Jeez.
Well, they did. I mean, they did a. I mean, the guava
It
you
will
called Nate
whisk you away.
because you said honey, like light honey, guava,
Light honey sounds about right.
Yeah.
raisins. I mean, that's just what the
sweetness, golden raisin versus darker raisins.
On their website, they actually show pictures of golden raisins.
it's raisin brand versus.
I mean, it's kind of color wise, aesthetically.
Store brand.
Yeah, I don't know.
Caraway, the plant, is similar in appearance to the members of the carrot family, with finely divided feathery leaves with thread-like divisions.
So it's a fucking carrot.
It flowers in June and July for those that are curious.
Very nice.
Just missed it.
Son of a bitch. More of an early summer thing.
So it's now out of season.
It's very nutritious,
just
by the
missed
way.
it.
This is basically like drinking a salad.
I gotta be honest. It's
Yeah.
It is.
You
It's
know,
like it's like a house salad.
Yeah, this is healthy.
So I will say this. All right. So from the caraway side of things, unless
I think I
it's-
smell some sunflower seeds in there.
I don't know if they're mixing in with the 95% rye, 4.9% malted barley, and 1.1% caraway seed. But I mean, it's amazing, this caraway thing. It's a superfood, man. It's
like-
got of your percentage of your daily, you got 125% of iron.
It's like an avocado.
How many grams is a serving?
100 grams,
All right.
3.5
I
ounces.
feel like we're losing people.
I'm educating myself over here. Caraway. I thought that was a singer.
Come caraway. Come.
It's Hadaway.
Oh, nice.
They just did a concert, by the way.
So it says on the front, all right. It says on the front, we begin our with our straight rye whiskey, initially aged in American white oak barrels, followed by secondary aging in Caribbean rum casks.
Straight
The
white
result
whiskey.
is notes of dried guava and sultana raisins with a spicy rye forward finish.
It's a
I
little
think
different when you switch it around a little bit. You definitely get a little bit more spice.
I think that grassy note that I'm getting is that rye grain
Yeah.
on the end that it's talking about.
It is a 95.5 rye, so. But like I said, this is an MGP rye that's gone into these Caribbean rum casks.
Mhm.
So you got Caribbean rum casks from 2 different Caribbean islands. But this doesn't have, like what Steve talks about a lot of times, this is not that that Christmas morning type of rye.
No, it's not. No, it isn't. Sean Anderson.
summer rye.
Sean Anderson says, "What time did Steve Crane start drinking today?" Nothing to do with that. I'm
About
just tired,
7.
man.
Central.
Yeah. AM or PM?
At least they asked Steve this time and not me.
Wow, you're being professional. I
Trying.
also want to thank Luciano for being he contributed to the Patreon. I just got a notice on that, so thank you very much. That's amazing.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, big support. Thank you very much.
Send him a shirt.
Nice. Gotta get an address. I'll reach out to him. So all right, so let's kind of round out part one here. We've talked a lot about obviously the Mas Igneus, and then we talked about the Redemption Rye, but it's not called that. It's the Rum Cask Finish. It's interesting, I will say though, that they don't call this Redemption Rye Rum Cask Finish.
Yeah,
it's as if I feel as though
hiding the rye.
But then in the description, even on the back, it says, you know what I mean? It's all straight rye whiskey finished in rum cask. They talk about it kind of in the secondary, but in the primary, they're not really pushing that out there on the shelf. So when you're walking through there,
they want to push the blue one, which
but
is
I
the high
think,
rye.
but
I think they want to differentiate between the high rye and then this. They are pushing what is marketable right now is that rum finish.
But I think that's because a lot of knowledgeable consumers know that you typically don't finish bourbons in rye casks or in rum casks. You finish ryes in rum casks.
That might be, I'll play the other side of that. I think that they're playing towards the bigger percentage of the people that are not, which is not an insult.
No,
it's people walking through there. They're like, oh, rum cask. I like rum. I like whiskey. Like this. Good price. There you go. I don't think I truly believe that you don't typically, like the people that look into the stuff that are the whiskey nerds or cigar nerds, you have to go for that initial impression from people that don't know what they're looking at. They're picking from the label, the manufacturer, or whatever it might be. I think that's intentional and not to be insulting, but maybe like the greatest or the lowest common denominator. Right. I mean, I think that's something like that's who's buying a lot of this stuff, especially at that $40-ish price point. They're going in looking for something new. They get that. They see, what was it, the blue label that he had, which was the high rye. I think that's where you're differentiating. Then you look into it, or you listen to a podcast like this to get that information. But I don't think that that's something that I think that was intentional because they're looking for people to grab it off the shelf and then start reading the label, start looking into this.
and to that point, like I mentioned earlier, if you look at a lot of the rum or a lot of the Redemption products that are on the shelves, you're going to see like that mid to upper 20s price point. And then this one's going to come in at 45. So consumers may go in there and, if they haven't had Redemption before, because maybe that price point or they were unfamiliar with the name scared them away because they were scared to try a whiskey that was under $30. But then they see this one's coming in at 45. They may go, oh, this one is, 50% or higher bump in price. Maybe that's, a little higher end. It's something a little bit better. Maybe I'll, pick that up to try first. But I think what would be really interesting is to actually try the Redemption Rye and then go to this, because then you're tasting the rye, which is still MGP 95.5. And Steve's got the original label pulled up. But to go from the original 95.5 rye to then that same product finished in the rum cask and see how much of an impact that rum cask finish has.
I think it's interesting talking about the marketing side of it. The original label, I'm looking at this. So you have on the new one, Cask Series, Redemption, Rum Cask Finish, and then a lot of fine print with a little bit of a story that I read there, right, with what they're doing. On the original, Redemption, a lot more colorful, like you mentioned, Rum Cask Finish, and then right to the bottom right of that, it says in a little bit more in your face, straight rye whiskey finished in Plantation Caribbean Rum Cask.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm going to stand by my guess is that they hid the rye part of it. Okay. But just a all right. Jake, let's start with you here for the ratings while we have you for part one. I know it's getting dark, getting late there. So it's as you know, for those who are listening the first time though, out of 10 being the best, you have 3 ratings here. The whiskey, which is the Redemption Rum Cask Finish, and then the cigar, which is the Mas Igneus, and then the pairing. So 3 ratings out of 10, 10 being the best.
Okay. Can you guys do the math for me? Because I don't have a calculator next to me.
It's out of 10. It's out of 10.
So you pick. So there's out of 10 on the whiskey, out of 10 on the cigar.
No, you guys do a percentage, don't you, normally?
No.
There's no math here. Just you
One out of
rate
10.
it. There's 3 ratings.
I'd like for you to do percentage, just for
No, don't ask him to do that.
For example,
I
an
can do
8.
it. I can do it. 7.2 is 72%.
I get it.
There you go.
I get it. I get it. Forget I said anything.
Move the decimal.
So, based on like my experience tonight with this cigar, like I said at the beginning, when I first tried the cigar, I didn't know if I was going to be a fan or not. There's a lot of pepper when I first tried it at the PCA. As Spencer's,
it's a little different as you get down.
yeah, it heats up a little bit.
Steve doesn't know yet,
but I think now that the cigars are hitting the shelves, across the U.S. and getting distributed, I think that the cigar itself it's well balanced. The tobaccos, the Dominican filler, that smoothness, that Corojo. I'm a big Corojo fan, Steve. So,
yeah.
I think the flavors of the tobaccos have mingled together and created an amazing cigar. I think the story, for one, adds like a lot of romantic styles to the cigar itself, which could sell it on its own, really. But the fact that it is a great cigar, I'm going to give it a 9.5.
Wow.
Damn, Jake Dog.
That did grow on you.
Yeah. I really enjoyed it. And I didn't really have, I'm trying to think of like what I had to eat tonight. And it was like, Alicia
double
made,
wrap Chipotle?
No,
Burrito?
no, not tonight. Not
don't
tonight.
double wrap your burrito.
Not tonight. But, Alicia made these they were like lasagna, like zucchini boats. So like the meat and the cheese. So like they're actually pretty good.
Sounds great.
Yeah.
No carbs.
But they were, but there wasn't a lot of pepper on it. So like, anyways, the cigar itself, like it's oaky. I get a little bit more of a milk chocolate to it. I know Steve said dark chocolate, but I'm getting more of that milk chocolate and the black pepper on the back end. But the baking spice, as far as like the cinnamon and all those are there. But like I said, 9.5 on that. As far as this rye whiskey rum cask thing that's going on, it's it doesn't do a lot for me. I think it's young. I think they rushed it. I don't think I think it was a play off of what Angel's Envy has done, and people were just trying to make money. So I'm going to give it a 4 or 5.
Russian.
Yep.
All right, and together?
Yeah, the pairing.
I thought that was my job.
All right. Yeah.
And so I think as far as a pairing goes, that's definitely, I mean, the cigar is helping the spirit itself. I'm going to give it a 6 as far as a pairing.
Okay.
Excuse me.
Bless you.
But yeah.
All right. So 6 on the pairing. Okay.
And just to clarify, the fillers, they are Nicaraguan and Dominican. So
Okay.
I do want to clarify that
Thank you.
of the cigar.
Spence.
All right. On the cigar itself, Jake, I'm not just saying this because you're here and you're a friend. I think this is a fantastic cigar. And I'm getting a lot of different flavors than when I first started smoking it. I think it's a 9, which for me is a really good score. I think it's a fantastic cigar. I think it's elegant. I think it's sexy. If I saw this on the shelf, I would buy it. But having the story behind it, I think does make me appreciate it a little bit more. But I do think it's a fantastic cigar. The bourbon itself, I'm with you. I'm not getting, and it might be as well as like these gents said, that my palate might be a little tapped out from earlier, but I'm getting about a 7.5 on the bourbon. But I think it's fairly priced for $44. I would buy it for $44. And I do think it would be nice to have on the shelf, especially as a summer sipper.
Yeah.
Combined the two, the cigar just it annihilates a strong word, but I think it just overpowers
Yes.
the bourbon, which I'm okay with because once I heard that you were on the pod, that we were focusing on the cigar. So combined, I'll go 8.2 because I can truly enjoy the cigar.
It's 82%, by the way.
Is that 82%?
Yeah, well, 83-ish.
But the bourbon is in the background, which I'm okay with or the whiskey's in the background.
There it is.
Because I'm enjoying the cigar for what the cigar is, and I can focus on the cigar more than the whiskey itself.
Yeah.
Nate, how about you?
So on the whiskey, I'm going to do the whiskey first because that's what it's supposed to be. I'm following directions.
It's on the screen.
Damn, that was just, he just
On
right under the bus, just right next door to him, right under the bus.
On the
You're
whiskey,
one asking all the tough questions, Spencer.
I actually agree with Spencer on the whiskey. I'm a 7.5 as well. This is a different product than a lot of the rye that we've had. It's different than a lot of the rum finished whiskeys that we've had as well. There is flavor there, but it's not a very deep, rich, heavy flavor note. It's actually a little bit more subtle, which is why I think this, as Spencer alluded to, that's why I think this is actually not a bad summer drink. A lot of times with like straight ryes, we tend to avoid those when it's a little bit warmer because they don't sit as well with you when it's warmer out. That's why Steve used to have the rule that we don't do ryes on the podcast if it's above 55 degrees.
Smart.
Was that said night with the Bookers and the Oliva.
You guys have used that a lot.
Yeah.
Dude, that reference, you have
every
no
podcast they mention that night, Jake.
You have no idea how disgusting, and I won't say that about whiskey and like cigars together, but you have no idea how disgusting that pairing was.
It was too much. If I would have had a little bowl of jalapenos between all of us as well, and you had to eat those at the same time, we would have probably died.
Yeah, you probably
a little bit that night. I think.
We should have just like chugged like a Frank's Red Hot and just tried to drink something afterwards.
I kind of want to try
it. Let's go.
7.5 on the whiskey. On the cigar, I'm going to give the cigar an 8.5. I did enjoy the flavor. What really stood out to me, when I mentioned earlier that I kind of got this dark chocolate and cranberry note from the cigar. As many cigars are out there on the market, this cigar still came across and had a different flavor profile than the other cigars that the hundreds or thousands of cigars that I've had in my time. But it was still, enjoyable flavor. It stood out, medium full body, but it had a nice spice on the retrohale, but it wasn't overwhelming through the nose. Like it didn't make my eyes water or make me want to sneeze. It was just very enjoyable. And like I said earlier, that spice wasn't on the palate, but then that spice came through on the nose, which, I think takes a lot of skill and effort when you're blending a cigar to be able to do that to where it's different dimensions of flavor on the palate and the nose. And then on the pairing, pretty close to Spencer, 8.25. On the pairing because I'm doing
it's a double drink.
Couldn't just stand.
I did 3 decimals. I did 3 decimals just for Jonathan Herring. But no, I do agree with Spencer. When I smoke the cigar and then go back to this whiskey, it actually makes the flavor of this whiskey a little bit thicker, a little bit heavier on the palate, a little bit sweeter, a little bit stronger of that honey note. Not quite to the point of caramel or butterscotch, but it did make that sweetness come out a little bit more when doing. What'd you say?
Guava.
No.
Try guava.
But no, I think the cigar is better than the whiskey, but I think the cigar actually elevates the whiskey because it makes it come across a little bit sweeter and a little bit more flavor.
Okay. I will go in a different order. I'm going to start with the pairing on this.
You son of a bitch.
Shit.
It's all fucked up, dude.
I don't know how to journal this.
I'll do it 3 different ratings still.
I'm joking.
The pairing, I'm going to give a 6.
Ooh.
I don't think it went well together. This is something that
it doesn't work.
Well, it's okay. I mean, I'm not giving it a 1. You know what I mean? It's okay. I mean, I enjoyed having this drink and the cigar with you guys tonight and everyone out there. I mean, I enjoyed it, but again, the pairing and hearing all the conversation, and I've been setting the cigar down a little bit longer and taking a few more sips of the whiskey, and that's what I encouraged Spencer to do at the one point, because it's like you get away from the cigar a bit and you get back to just the whiskey. You get a little bit more of that, what it's trying to do. It starts, getting away from what the cigar is leaving on your palate. So I'll give the pairing a 6, because I don't think that either one of these products were necessarily meant to be paired up together. So the whiskey, I'm going to give it an 8. I think the whiskey is it's good. It's enjoyable. It is lighter. It's not, I think, again, going back to what I think, in my opinion, is of how they marketed this, is that you're not necessarily hiding the fact that this is a 95% rye, and they did it with what they call their straight rye whiskey, and finish it in that for 3 months is a short period of time to finish, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But they may have proofed it down, to your point, Jake, that they brought it down to that 94 proof, right? But it's something that on its own, or maybe with we have the Reserva Real from Romeo up next, probably go a lot better with that. So I give the whiskey an 8 on its own. I mean, it's if you're picking from the bottles on your bar, and just because we've already talked about it, what Spencer had tried before the podcast, this isn't an Elijah Craig barrel proof barrel pick. I mean, this is a totally different product. They're both whiskeys. They both have alcohol in it, but it's a completely different experience. So I'll give the whiskey an 8, because for what they're trying to do at a 90.
It is. You're accepting
it is what it is. Yeah,
yeah.
I mean, they're not trying to compete with some of the others. I will say, to Nate's point, about with the Angels Envy rye and all of that, they're trying to do that. I don't know if they are. I think they're trying to get in a market, but the way that they have marketed themselves, I think they did an okay job. I think the price point is on point. I think that it is enjoyable. It does have a little bit of what I called a little bit of like a spicy butterscotch type of a flavor. All the other notes that they throw in there, trying to sound a certain way, like a really high-end review. I'm talking just pure drinking enjoyment. Yeah, it probably would go well in a cocktail on its own. I could sip on this summer day, winter day. I wouldn't call it the best nightcap. I just think it's not. It's good. I mean, it's
good at a barbecue.
It's flavorful, but it's not high proof. They're not trying to do anything. I don't think that they're like, we might expect more out of a bottle based on the mood you're in and what you want that night. But for what they're trying to put out there, I think they did an okay job with it. I think they did a fine job with putting out something at that price point. MGP, I think, puts out great product.
Oh, yeah.
So who else to source from? I like the fact that they're doing batches, because I can see this changing. Batch 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
So you think they're going to try and change the flavor profile?
I think they're going to listen
batch?
to.
They better.
But again, if they did a Redemption Rum Cask Finish barrel strength, I think that the panel across the board tonight would expect a lot more out of that.
I think if you're going to a liquor store and you're going to spend $45, $48 out the door, I don't think you're going to pick this up. You're going to pick it up once and try it and make sure that it's on your shelf, but you're going to have about a little more than that left in the bottle after a year.
I think someone like you, Jake, I think that's your experience. I think some other people might like this. Again, you have to go to the masses here of what they have. This is so easy drinking that I think there are a lot of people out there that would so obviously Steve is on the payroll. No, I'm trying to be more objective to the masses. I think that this is something that some people might actually enjoy this as a lighter offering. We have to remember the best-selling whiskeys out there, not only
85 proof,
80 proof.
80
proof is the best-selling whiskeys out there, right? That is that keeps the lights on. That's what they're doing out there. So we have to, again, I appreciate if you're looking for something more, this isn't it. If you're looking for something that's a more of a rye that's not rum cask finished and you read the label and you bought it, that's your fault. So the cigar, I'm going to give a 9. I think that the cigar is something that on its own, And, if we put more thought or did a wine night, I think this is something that we could have done.
I don't even know what type of whiskey would go well with this.
Well, I tell you what, I tried that high rye from Redemption.
Damn it, I finished my cigar, so I don't.
I tried
the high rye works a little better.
No, hell no.
Okay.
No,
It's
too much spice.
it was way too much spice.
Yeah.
So
figured.
I mean, I would do, if it was me, I would do something.
More
If I was
viscosity, a little more oily something.
I would do like a weeded.
Interesting.
I would
Sounds
do
weird.
like a larceny or even like a special like Maker's Mark pick from somebody,
Okay.
or like even with the proof point of like a higher like Maker's Mark pick.
Again,
yeah.
I think this is something that we talked about a lot tonight. So with the cigar, giving it a 9, I really enjoy what Luciano did and what you guys are doing with this cigar is that you didn't hide the fact. To my, recollection, Pete Johnson's the only one that really tried to start going towards like the Bordeaux's with the La Mission cigars and stuff like that. Pairing with wines isn't cool. It's not popular. It's not to, again, the masses when you're putting out a cigar. So to talk about a cigar that you're intentionally blending to go with wine, if you are a rye whiskey or a bourbon drinker, or you're looking to pair, this wouldn't pair with scotches. Most
What
like
if you had
all
this
four.
at a patio with a bottle of red.
I'm telling you that it's fantastic. I'd be interested to try this with a brandy. I'd be interested to try this, right?
Yeah, or an Armagnac.
Right. So this cigar may not be the best for a quote like bourbon and BS podcast with doing something with whiskey, but it shouldn't deter anyone from buying this cigar and getting to the point where like, man, this doesn't go with anything I like. Well, this is maybe a bit more of a situational buy, which is not good for business. Don't get me wrong. It's not good for selling the cigar, but smoking it on its own, as I did this week, it was enjoyable because I like the product they're trying to match it up with.
Perfect draw, no issues.
Construction's great, everything's great, the marking's great, everything's.
Relight it.
My point is that I like that. It's one of those things that I always say. If I'm gonna, people ask like, what the most expensive cigar, is it good? It's the same thing. I always go to the wine example, typically from a retail standpoint. If you were to say, hey, I got this $1,000 bottle of Pinot Grigio, let me pour you a glass. I say, hang on a second. I'm going to be that guy that I don't care for Pinot Grigio normally. So I'm going to go into that experience. And then it's like, well, I'll just pour you a little bit. I sip it. Like, what? And they're like all on the edge of the seat. What do you think? I mean, it's good for a Pinot Grigio. I like it.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's one of those things where it's like, I like what this cigar tastes like on its own. I think that you could pair it with food or a wine or something like that. And you guys have been transparent in all the literature out there that you absolutely went towards that, which is a smaller market.
Yeah. Well, and I think
is fine.
Yeah, and I also, not to like add more to the time here, but I think that with you, Steve, like with guys like you and guys like Tyler and even myself, like since I've came out to Indy and like been at these like higher end places, like I've gotten into like red wines. Like when did you ever know me to drink wine? You got bougie out there, man. I don't know what to tell you. And
changed, bro. You've changed.
I have, but
I just want at least 145 proof, and I'm good.
But I think that the wine market and the cigar market are starting to mingle again, and you see a lot more of it. So I think like Luciano hit it like right on the tip of what's about to happen in the cigar market when people are, and I think the mindset goes to, you have guys that are sitting around there smoking 2 or 3 cigars, and not everybody wants to be degenerates like you and I, Steve, and drink a half a bottle of whiskey and be tanked.
I feel like I'm
so
being targeted here a little bit.
Well, I'm being targeted too, but I
throw myself in front of those bullets too.
Yeah, I mean, I think
good to have you back on.
Thanks. But I think when you're discussing like what to pair with cigars, and you sit down and like you're trying to be a little bit better about yourself, and you're not trying to drink whiskey and drink something harsh, the next best thing is going to be a really nice, flavorful Bordeaux or Merlot or Cab, and that's
sadly
what,
your alcohol tolerance. You can drink a bottle of wine and feel better than a half a bottle of whiskey.
Yeah.
Depends on how those sulfites treat you.
Fair. But yeah, so that those are my ratings. I think, again, this is one of those that I try to look at it. Sean Anderson out there saying I'm on payroll. No, I try to be a little bit, I separate a little bit. That's why I started with the pairing, because I was not happy with the pairing of the two of them. But I tried to separate the two. I smoked the cigar on its own for a little bit. I drank the whiskey on its own for a little bit. And I was trying to get that. I also I haven't had this bottle of whiskey on its own without this cigar. So this is my only experience. But I understand your guys' impression of the whiskey based on tonight's experience. You know what I mean?
Fair.
Yeah, that's how I'd look at that. So that being said, as we rattle it out. Thanks again to Luciano for being a Patreon member. I want to remind you guys, patreon.com/bourbonandbs. You guys can do a $5 tier, $10 tier, $25 tier. Do it as long as you like. Do it one time. If you want to do a one-time contribution, I would absolutely do the Venmo route, which is at Bourbon and BS, because the Patreon will renew. And I appreciate the continued support. $5, $10, $25 again. And we'll get you guys a podcast shirt, depending on which tier you guys are at. But we appreciate all that support from you guys. And again, Tinderbox at Easton, Columbus, Ohio. I'll go to that.
You got to get the shirt, man.
Buyjack.com, byjack.com/bourbonbs. Jake's got the 2020 shirt for BS, which is when the world hands you some BS, light it up.
Yeah.
Love that. Thank you very much for wearing that tonight. And always the support. Tinderbox at Easton in Columbus, Ohio, they carry a lot of Crowned Heads, Ace Prime, Pichardo products. Check them out. If you don't have a local brick and mortar, they can absolutely get something out to you. I just shipped 5 packages today to people all over Ohio, Florida, South Carolina. I forget where else. There's one other state. But yeah, guys, we appreciate that extended support at Tinderbox at Easton. But if you guys want to try the Mas Igneus or anything else from the Crowned Heads portfolio, check them out. And then get a hold of us at Tinderbox at Easton. You can email or get a hold of us through the podcast, whatever. Also, Altadis USA, we're going to be lighting up the Romeo y Julieta Reserve Royale for part 2. Always, that might go, again, a bit better with this bottle as we have a bit left of this.
A little lighter.
That's
It
why I
is
was
a
gonna
lot
ask,
lighter.
You want to keep drinking this for part 2?
I want to drink whatever's on the shelf. I've been staring at that shelf for a little bit.
And also, BS Cigar Company, thanks for the support. The gold and silver are available. The gold is made by Placencia, and the silver is made by Espinosa. And guys, I thank you. Jake, thank you for taking time out. I know you got a busy schedule now. You're traveling all the time. You're headed out in the morning, I believe. Thanks to Alicia for letting you do this tonight.
Yeah. No, thank you.
Yeah, appreciate it. And you're welcome back anytime, as always, to the show, whether you're in town, you have a free night on a Wednesday, and you want to hop on no matter what, representing Crowned Heads or just being a part of the show, being a cigar and bourbon enthusiast. So appreciate that very, very much, guys. Happy Whiskey Wednesdays. Cheers. We're going to do a brief intermission, and then we're going to roll into part 2, which is Cut the Shit. Interested to see where this goes.
Yep. Cheers, everybody. Guys. Thank you.
Cheers, Jake. Joe.
Sean Anderson says, I think once you've been a Patreon for 2 years, you got to send us 4 of the cigars you're going to have on the show. It's not a bad Not a bad idea.
Jake, I really enjoy the cigar, man. Good work.
Yeah. I mean,
delicious.
Obviously, I didn't make it, but I sell it, and I appreciate it.
You are Crowned Heads now.
I am. A part
and
of it.
if you talk to Luciano, please tell him personally thanks for supporting the podcast, and remind him that the Patreon renews every month. So
yeah, I will. I'll let him know. So he's having some his grandmother and grandfather aren't doing too well. So
man,
God bless him and his family. So
absolutely.
Yeah. I was supposed to do an event with him last month in Dayton, and unfortunately he had to change his plans. So because of that reason.
Our best for that.
Yep.
Dave Gordon's still waiting for my bling. We have it sitting here. Absolutely. Thanks for the reminder. We will get that out to you.
Do you guys
Dave
want
Gordon,
me
where are
to
you at?
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Jake.
Do you guys want me on here, or you want the three of you guys? So
No, I would absolutely. Yeah, you can stay on all night, man. I don't care. It's. I just didn't want, like I told you, on the phone. I didn't want to take away one of your free nights, at home. So that's entirely up to you. You can stay on for part of it, and if you want to go inside,
okay,
100% up to you, man. Yeah, you're absolutely welcome for part two. You're always welcome.
all right. I'm gonna do a intermission real quick, and I can stay on, but you can switch it to your guys' main camera if you want. I'll turn my mic off or whatever you want to do.
Well, do you want to be a part of this? I can just bring it back on. All right, so I'll give you an intermission here real quick if you want to take a breather.
All right, sounds good, brother.
See you soon.
Yep.
Dave Gordon, well, unless it's been 29 months, you're good. That's normal schedule, it seems. Man, God.
How much did Luciano? How much did Luciano?
No.
$5. Okay.
Patreon. No, it's just great to see that.
Yeah. He then sent me a friend request.
Nice. I don't know if I got one. That's cool. I might already be friends with him. I don't know. But it'd be great to have him on. That's what I'm going to talk to Jake and Miguel about is some of their new projects. Maybe get him remote with Jake or with Miguel, or get a couple of screens up there and get everyone on there. That'd be a fun episode. I'll try to work on that this week. I got to fill the schedule. Josh Porter, you got a camera switcher? No, I'm not. I'm just doing both here. I'm doing it's not switching the cameras. It's just running the stream here. So Josh, if you work for cheap, and I mean free, you're welcome to help us out. We were talking about upgrading some of the presentation here, because we did have someone, not to name names, that wanted to do a Venmo contribution to upgrade something, and we're just trying to figure that out. So hopefully we can upgrade that. I'll take a quick you warming up out there?
Yeah.
Nate, you're in charge.
All right. Spencer had asked me right before we went to intermission, straight cut versus V cut. So I really do enjoy the V cut.
What's the difference?
I mean, so typically with a V cut, it's going to keep that cap intact, so you don't get as many little bits of tobacco falling out, like getting in your mouth, your teeth, your gums, whatever. Because a lot of the V cutters that are made now have a deeper wedge than what they used to, so you still get about the same amount of surface area to pull through as a straight cut. And years ago, I was actually going to purchase one of the nice V cutters that the Tinderbox carries, but instead, as a birthday present, my wife bought me the Zycar XO straight cutter. So, like, the V cutter I was going to buy was a $60 V cutter. This is a $120 straight cut.
Is that both?
No,
Is no one that both?
cheap ones,
Okay.
like $7 cutters
Yeah.
that I wouldn't use. But-
a tougher pull on the V cuts.
But, well, like I said, it depends on the V cut. I really enjoy V cutting torpedoes. But no, because my wife bought me this cutter as a birthday present, I kind of feel obligated to use it. So, like, this is my... No, don't. So this is the cutter that I keep in my pocket that I use on the vast majority of my cigars.
I hear you, man. I was just curious if there's a reason why.
Well, and we get that question a lot in the shop, especially people that are new to cigars. They'll buy a cigar and it's like, oh, would you like me to cut that? It's like, yeah, go ahead. And like, you want a straight V or punch? And there's quite a few of them that'll go, well, what's the difference? And you explain the difference to them, and they're like, well, which one's better? Just like with whiskey, wine, or cigars, it is all personal preference. There are some people that love a punch cut, some people love a V, some people love a straight.
If you're having a expensive cigar,
Again, it's all personal preference. If
So there's no advantage one way or another, really.
So there advantage, disadvantage. So on a punch cut, depending on the ring gauge punch cut you're using compared to the cigar, sometimes a punch cut will tighten up the draw a little bit because you're pulling the smoke through a smaller hole. So it's just going to draw and burn a little bit differently. So some people love a punch cut. Obviously, you can't do a punch cut on a torpedo cigar.
Sure.
But then again, a V cut is a little bit difficult on something that's got a flat head to it, such as the CAO flathead, the Javas. Those are a little bit difficult to do a V because they don't sit. Oh, you're grabbing that bottle? Have you even tried the?
I like whatever you poured for me. It's good.
Oh.
What is it?
So what I poured you is the Stellum Equinox bourbon.
Delicious.
This is the Fibonacci rye from Stellum.
I just listened to all your math talk about that one, so I was just
Yeah.
Yeah, try it. Man, he's in the garage. He's a supporter.
Well, what's one of the better ones you guys have of these that are left?
He really liked that. I like that one too.
You're not allowed to drink the 1792 bottled and bond. That's for a podcast.
Okay, well, someone's been drinking it.
No, that's how it was
Donated
given
as
to
such.
us.
Okay.
I mean,
Is this cherry or no?
No.
no, that's not the cherry. That's just the weeded whiskey. So you either have the Stellum Rye, Fibonacci, the Stellum Bourbon Equinox, which is what's in your glass right now,
Which one was that? Which one did that one came from?
from the Infinity bottle.
there on the right.
I
Delicious.
don't know if there's anything left in that Elijah Craig barrel proof.
You gotta know that.
He's had too much Elijah Craig
You
barrel
can try
proof.
that Stellum. The other one.
I just want to see what we got. I mean, this isn't something they even sell us in Ohio.
No.
I just want to take a whisper of that one.
All right.
And so the normal Stellum products are $55 bottles. The Equinox and the Fibonacci are both $100 bottles.
Okay.
So
I don't mind the Redemption for what it is. I think he explained it really well.
you're allowed to sit back down and
Yeah,
be on the mic when you.
We got to get going. Cut the shit. We got a show to do.
And yes, Ryan, there is a bottle of Bullet bourbon sitting around somewhere.
Small bottle.
Jesus, that's the biggest bottle of Bullet I've ever seen.
Thank you, Ryan, for bringing that over.
Yeah,
Great
a half-gallon bottle.
Great with Sprite.
Great gift. Appreciate that.
You know the biggest piece of knowledge I've ever gotten from this podcast?
That you're handsome.
Yeah, but the other people don't know. It was when you're done with the cigar, just let it lie.
Yep.
Facts.
That really blew my mind after 20 years of smoking cigars.
Jesus, we're getting attacked. Yeah. No. Yeah. Again, in the shop, we get a lot of that. People stamp out a cigar.
How much is a pack of 5 golds? How much is a pack of 5 silvers?
All right. So right now, those cigars we've stayed true to the price. They range from $8.95 to $10.95 based on size. We do have a sampler right now that has the Robusto, Toro, and Double Churchill of the gold, the Rubito, and the Toro of the silver for $39.95. That's your best buy.
20% off.
That's your best buy.
I want that.
I want that.
I want that.
God, look at that bug on the screen.
Big ass bug.
Jesus.
It's Mothra.
You got your gun on your Nate?
Yeah.
If everyone
you've
just
been
brought
drinking.
out guns.
Problem. So many
Not doing
problems.
that on the live podcast. Turn
Yeah,
the camera
we
off
are
and
sure.
maybe.
So I was playing
shooting my
poker.
garage.
You're right. I'm not going to
poker
put
with a couple guys at a cabin.
Wake Tony up.
And this was a joke, but it wasn't funny. A guy whipped out a gun
Oh,
and was just like, play the hand again, and like whipped out the gun and set on the table.
no, that is not cool.
It was not cool, but did feel like Maverick.
A little bit.
Yeah, like before.
I like that movie.
Before he started going after.
Easy.
Yeah.
James Garner was a nice guy.
Oh, yeah, I didn't even. If you would have asked me to name 15 characters, it would have been Mel Gibson, Jodie Foster.
Jodie Foster was the girl in that.
Jodie
yeah.
Foster was the girl.
All right. Shall we start here, boys and girls? New
Sure.
Cut.
Can't wait to see where you go with this one.
I don't know. It's where you guys go with it.
When I say cut the shit, what does that mean to you?
we'll talk about it.
This is a pretty bottle. 115. Fuck me.
I love how
What's the proof on
these
this guy?
work.
I think that one was like 117.
Really? It's a good bottle.
All right, you guys ready?
Yup.
I love that you give me the classics.
God damn it.
Jesus, you always complain about not putting up audio. I got to splice this. There's just silence there.
You have to spice this.
Welcome back to the Bourbon and BS podcast, everyone. This is episode 235, part 2, Beyond the BS. We just had a great part 1. If you guys are listening to the audio, make sure you click back to part 1 if you're interested in the cigars and the whiskey. We had Jake Sanders on. I think he's going to be joining us here momentarily as well for part 2. Love having him on. He is co-founder of the podcast. Now he is with Crowned Heads, and they distribute the Mas Igneus, which is what I'm still just finishing up, but there's not much left at it. We talked about that in part 1, as well as the Redemption Rum Cask Finish. That was the featured whiskey. And we have Spencer Lappin still in the garage. Nate Hale's with me, and I am Steve Crane. Again, thanks for tuning in. If you guys want to share this, we love it. Review it. Let us know what you think. Honest. I'm sure you have some positives and some negatives on this show, but we kind of do what we want on it. So we will take it in consideration because we do want to make it more of an enjoyable experience for you guys every week, whether you listen live, you listen after the fact, or you listen on the audio. But so part 2, quick shout out to all of our sponsors, Tinderbox at Easton in Columbus, Ohio, Altadis USA, BS Cigar Company. We talk about those a lot in part 1, but you guys make this show possible. Along with you listeners out there, we had a new patreon.com/bourbonbs podcast member tonight. So thank you, Luciano, who actually made the Mas Igneus cigar as a collaboration with the winery. Love having him a part of this podcast. Maybe for the first time, he also threw some comments out there. So we appreciate you listening and love having you be a part of our podcast. If you guys want to do a one-time contribution, we just had a major contribution on there. Venmo at Bourbon and BS. That helps us out. Tell us what you want to do with the money. But again, you guys, it can be as small or large as you'd like, but a one-time contribution definitely helps out grow this podcast, gives us the motivation to, if you guys are listening and enjoying it, to make us try to make you guys happy with what we're putting out there and what you guys want to hear from us every week. Again, 235 episodes in out of a garage in Columbus, Ohio. You guys make this this show so much more enjoyable. So thank you very much. If you guys want to buy some swag, it's buyjack.com. So that's byjack.com/bourbon and BS for the shirts. I've got the 3/4 sleeves. So does Nate. I have the red and black. He has the gray and black. Spencer's wearing one of the shirts from the annual event here in Columbus. If you guys are in the area, we have a lot of people fly in for it. Smoking 10 event in Columbus, March every year around St. Patrick's Day. This year, it's going to be another Saturday. So we're loving that because you guys seem to enjoy that. And we had a great time on a Saturday this last year after 3 years of a hiatus. But if you guys want to get some swag, there's also some podcast shirts. Pour one more, light up another. We'll figure this out together in several different colors. And we do appreciate all that support. And send us your pictures or post it on the Bourbon and BS community page on Facebook. And we can get those photos out there, throw them on Instagram, all that stuff. Love seeing you guys in that. Part 2 is Beyond the BS. This is where we talk about life, just like in a cigar shop, having some drinks with some friends, in a garage, on a patio, or anywhere you guys are at. Part 2 tonight is, the topic is cut the shit.
Cut the shit.
So I put in the...
Where'd that come from?
Steve's been fed up.
No, actually, it's not necessarily me. I've got things rolling more or less smoothly right now. Just observing people in my life and things that people are going through, conversations I've had. And I'm not going to really get specific with that, but it made me kind of recall some of the situations I've had in business, my career over the years, in personal relationships, and also, to myself, right? So I put in the description tonight is, let's get to the point. Dancing around the issue, being passive aggressive, and having tact more important? Is having tact more important than the message? What's the balancing scale of feelings and the message? Sometimes it's between you and someone else, while other times it's between you and the mirror.
So I'm catching up on the last 6 or so episodes you guys have had, and I'm on the one that Jake and all the other gents were on, where you guys had the rum, RHUM. So I've listened to a few recently. When I heard "Cut the Shit," the most recent thing that came to mind was it your buddy Eric?
Goldhaber,
okay,
yeah.
Okay, so I don't know him. Maybe if I saw him personally, I know him. But the first thing that came to mind was you guys were talking about birthdays and wishing people happy birthday. And Eric's point of view was when someone's birthday came up on Facebook, that if he didn't want to wish him a happy birthday, he would delete him. When Nate saw someone that was happy birthday, he said, I will wish him a happy birthday in person. And your thing was that you would text him. I feel like Eric is,
Depending on who they are, yeah.
Depending on who they are. Eric's point of view was more, I cut that person out of my life.
It's like a reminder I haven't talked to them in a year.
It's a reminder that you can view that two ways. One, that I want to wish them a happy birthday, say hello, or delete them from your life. And over the years, I kind of lean more towards Eric, where if I don't want to talk to somebody, I don't talk to them. Now, you, Steve, will view that as an opportunity to talk to them more. Nate will view that as an opportunity where I will talk to them in person. So when Cut the Shit, I viewed it as cutting someone out their life almost.
Okay.
Do you agree, disagree?
I think that is an aspect of this. Welcome back, Jake Sanders. Thank you very much for staying with us.
Thanks for having me back on.
Anytime, as always.
So do you enjoy people that kind of dance around the topic, or do you just want someone to get to the
All right,
point?
Going back to the happy birthday thing is sometimes I think it's unique, right? You're going to say hopefully happy birthday to people that you have in your life, and you know, if you have someone that you see most times and all you do is post on their Facebook or whatever, then that's not much. I'm not saying you have to go buy a gift for someone, but I thought that Eric's, going back to that, I think Eric's viewpoint is valid in his life, right? I think it's extreme for a lot. If I haven't talked to you, it's kind of like the clothes you have in your closet, right? You go through once a year, and if you haven't worn them in a year, you just take them to Goodwill, right? Because you're not going to wear them. Yeah. You didn't know they were there. You had to review this stuff, and that's something to deal with friends. Not necessarily what I was dealing with when I offered this as a topic, but to address that is, sometimes you have to cut that out of your life because you don't have the time for it, right? And I think that's a big part of this, is that if you are just trying to maintain relationships and you're trying to sometime down the road, I might have to rely on this person. You just have an open heart for people that you want to make sure that they can rely on you. Sometimes there's people, like I think I said on that episode, is that, there's people that I'll reach out to them, text message, or sometimes Facebook if I know them. If I had like 5 people on my Facebook, friends that had birthdays, or 10 people on my, that had birthdays, I'll look through that. I realize that like maybe 8 out of 10 people, I don't have interactions. They're Facebook friends. They are cigar people that I've never met, but I've got 125 mutual friends with them from the cigar world, but I've never had an interaction. I'm not going through and making sure I say happy birthday to each one of them. Doesn't mean I'm going to just delete them from my friend list just because of the position I'm in the cigar world. You know what I mean? Like if they want to reach out, I'd respond. You know what I mean? If they're asking for money, probably not give it to them.
When you're in sales, it's a little different.
Well, sales, and then again, the community side of it. Like even on the Bourbon and BS community page that we got like 1,700 members of, I haven't met a good vast majority of those people personally.
Right. So
but
why would you
love
want to
having
burn
them
bridges?
be a part of it, and I hope that they appreciate what we do in this show and with the community page. But at the same time, if they ever wanted to reach out and had a question, I don't necessarily because it's nothing on me to make sure that I have enough friendships available on Facebook. It's neither here nor there. They don't really show up on my feed. You can minimize the interaction you have with them on your feed. I don't think it's necessarily. I get what you're saying, that you do cut people out of your life. if needed. So yeah, cut the shit in that regard. If all they bring you is drama and all that stuff, or you haven't talked to them in a while and they reach out to you, you're like, why are you reaching out to me? Because you need something? Like, we haven't spoken in 2 years, and now you're reaching out to me. You're not in my life, my everyday life. You're in my social media realm, and that's about it.
So I kind of view it as so Steve's generous enough to have these get-togethers, these barbecues, these hosting events, 20, 30 people. And you can definitely have the conversation.
More than that.
Where you can have a conversation.
40 burgers and 24 hot dogs on Sunday.
It's not really about you, but
I wish I wouldn't have missed it.
Yeah.
Sorry I wasn't there.
No, I'm just saying.
It was just close friends and family, Jake. Don't worry about it.
No, I was going to be there when he first.
Oh, really?
When he first
we had the rain
scheduled it,
check.
but you pussies can't deal with the rain, so.
Well, he's not going to have 40 people inside his house.
So the way I kind of view it is, not that we have limited time out here, but with the people that I want to associate myself with, and you guys might have to do it a little different because you're in the retail world and you have to have the BS conversations about how's the weather, just surface level talk.
But you're in sales too.
I'm in sales too, and it's a little different because I made a conscious choice 10, 15 years ago when I got into the sales world to separate my business relationships from my personal relationships. And that might be a little bit harder in y'all's world just because they can kind of merge, which could be a good thing.
Very much so.
Which your friends could be your business partners and stuff like that. But for whatever reason, I made a conscious choice years ago to separate the business from the personal. But if I'm having a conversation with Nate, which I get to see, once a month or so, I don't just want to say, how's the weather? How are things? I actually want to get to, especially with my true friends, get to the point of what's actually going on in your life. Jake, if I get to see you a couple times a year, I don't just want to say, how are things going with you? I actually want to get to the essence shorter rather than later because I have limited time.
But you're always good at asking the tough questions.
Yeah, but
you've always done that.
Right, but I actually care, right? I'm sure you could talk to me about nothing that's going on, and you can do that. But I actually want to know what's actually going on. So when I hear cut the shit, it's all right with the people that I actually know in my life. I want to actually have the true heart to hearts with them, and if it's reciprocated, that's great. But with my friends, all right, what's actually going on in your life? So that's what I kind of took from the cut the shit. But I feel like you both might have a different way of looking at the topic.
Let's start with the personal side of it, right? I mean, that is one of those things where, we talked about this several weeks ago, and it did have a bit of a regard to what you were talking about with this last weekend, having a barbecue at my place. And it's a mix between my family, my friends, some cigar friends, some just friends in general,
significant others, friends,
Kristen's friends and everything else. And then you have a bit of I had some neighbors over, it was people that I feel like that I want to have that day with. There are a lot of other circles, more cigar friends, that I would love to have over. I also have a capacity here, right? 40 people is
a lot.
It's a lot of people.
Well, again, it's not a venue, I have a patio, a yard, and it's one of those things.
Flanagan's.
But
or McClellan's.
Yeah.
My point is that I was happy to have people over. But there are some people that were there that I still hadn't seen. They had said no. We talked about this on the show recently, but there were some people there that I extended an invite to. And one of the reasons that there were so many people is that there were more than a handful of people that said yes that I was expecting a no from. And I was happy about that.
Pleasant surprise.
It was a pleasant surprise. And it's like, oh shit. Now we invited so many people, there's going to be so many people at the house. And now we have to adapt to that, which I was happy to do. And one of those things where, if you listen back to, I forget which episode that was that we were talking about this, but it was one of those things where there were people at that, including my brother's family that never say yes to it. because lives are happening. You have the COVID stuff happening in the last couple of years, all this stuff. But my
Did your
brother
come by?
Huh?
Did your brother come by?
My brother, my sister-in-law, my niece and
That's
nephew
awesome.
came by. My mom came by. I had some other friends like Big Rob. He came by. So like people that, you know, normally will say no just because they can't make it or they're just not doing anything. And that was kind of the message of that one. It's like I was talking to people like, hey, how's everything going? And they're like, it's okay. I'm not really doing much. Like, well, why not? I don't know. Just life. I just don't get out much. I don't really do much. And that was kind of coming out of the last couple of years. That was happening a lot. I had more than one person. There were several people that did that, that came on Sunday that they're like, well, you know, we need to get out more. This was great. I'm so happy. Thank you very much. Like, hey, next time, you know, not you, but like next time, let's my place or let's go out. Like now that we've got our schedules. Yeah, we got more schedules aligning. So now we're a little freed up. We realize that we need to do this. And more people came out. That was like, again, cutting people out. They're going to be fine. You're going to be fine. But sometimes they're the personal relationships, to your point, that you do offer a little bit of a leash to it that hopefully they can say no, but it is such a refreshing surprise when they say, okay, yeah, we'll be there. What can we bring? Same thing when you reach out to someone like, yeah, I haven't talked to you in a while, but, you know, I'm just checking in. You do that kind of that regular check-in, whether it be once a year, once a month, once a quarter, or whatever it might be. You just check in. And to your point, Spencer, you know, like you don't necessarily be like, hey, Jake, when are you in town next? I want to grab a drink. But when you find out he is in town, like, hey, do you want to have a drink? And then you have a meaningful conversation. There's no agenda there that you hope that Jake is going to reach out to you next time he's in town. But it's like you enjoy that time together and people appreciate that. But life gets in the way. Life happens, all that stuff. You don't necessarily focus on all individual, smaller, if you will, relationships. You just need to, in this conversation, we talked about that on that show, is that when at the end of the night, someone's like, well, what are you doing, you know, for your community and your local group? And I said, well, you're sitting on my patio right now. I'm inviting people over because this is important to me. I'm not trying to be popular. I'm not trying to do all this stuff. I enjoy doing this and I enjoy hanging out with people. And I say this in a certain way that I don't want to say that. All I'll say is this. I'm not getting invited to people's houses for get-togethers like that. But everyone that comes over to my house for those, and they meet all these different people, and obviously we have a good social, different circles. Then when they get together, to your point, Spencer, when you were in the house, when you first came over, you're like, thanks so much. Like, you know, your girlfriend really enjoyed it. And it was like, everyone was super nice. And it was just a good fucking afternoon. It's because, cut the shit. It's like, no, we're getting together. You want to come? You're invited. You don't want to come? No hard feelings. You're lost. No hard feelings.
Well, it is. They're a loss too.
It's just
half the battle in life.
I hope that you're doing this. I just, that was my side of things, is that I want to do it. I can't do it every day or every, you know, but I mean, when I invite people over, they can come over if they want. If I want to have it, like if you know, Jake's in town, he wants to grab a drink or he wants to stop by the shop, wants to come over to the house, you've done it. Other times you've been in town, you message me or whatever, but it's like everyone's doing different things to the lineup schedules. It's not always easy.
And I'm bad at my notice. So I thank you, Spencer and Steve and Nate, for at least like coming out. I know Spencer works hard at coming out, like when I'm in town, and I know I don't.
There's effort there.
It's effort.
Like,
it's effort.
Like my note, like I got to get better at like putting my notice in and giving you guys time. So,
but again, you know, it's not always why you're coming to town. You have things to do,
right?
But I do think that there's an effort there on both sides. That, again, I mean, to your point is or to your example, is doing something as small as that. Again, I'll go to my mom every time she's been over for something like that, which has been just a few times. She loved I loved meeting this neighbor this time. She hadn't seen I have a good friend, for those that don't know, Rob. We call him Big Rob, and both he and my mom said how good it was to see each other, because they've known each other because we've been friends for over 20 years. Wow. And it's like, she's like, I haven't seen him in forever. and it was just so good to catch up. Everyone was talking or whatever, but it was just nice to talk to him again.
I also think that over the past couple of years, people have become way more isolated. Also, career-wise, job-wise, is that people's jobs and have become more isolated. So having those types of experiences, before everyone was going into the office, everyone was meeting, and because of the way the world's changed, we can do more virtual things like this, which is great because we can have Jake and stuff like that because of technology. But in general, like this wasn't possible a couple of years ago.
Well, and we talked about that. It's like the whole shutdown wasn't possible before all this technology.
And a lot of people, and that's a good point, but a lot of people, are working from home now. So, they don't.
Which wasn't possible before technology you got to this point.
Jake, is your fiance working from home?
Well, she was working from home before like the pandemic, but it worked out.
Have you noticed that to try to get her out more and about to deal with people, or has it been a pretty smooth transition? Just her working from home hasn't really changed her life in general.
I've always been kind of the person that wants to go do something and be amongst people and have like Monday night, it was on a whim. I met like 3 people, Tyler being one of them. And, we met over at Blend over here in Indy, and, all of a sudden we had like a couple of drinks, and I called Alicia. I was like, hey, so I don't know what you're planning for dinner, but you want to have steak night? And we, I bought everybody steaks. There was 5 of us. We had 2 bottles of wine. One guy stayed till 2 a.m. I didn't really have much to do the next day. So, I'm that kind of guy. So like, I guess to answer your question, Spencer, like, I'm the one to initiate it, but she enjoys being out as well. But you gotta it's the artist's suggestion, right?
Well, and there's introverts that are fine in those situations, but they don't plan it, right? And I think that really hit us all. I did want to like shift a little bit. We can keep talking about that, but like to you, Spencer, cut the shit. One of those things was the professional side of it. Again, when you go in there from the sales side of it and you get the runaround, or you're like, oh yeah, no, I like what you're talking about. I just got to think about it. We got to make things work. All the numbers. It's not necessarily like you're in the car salesman world, but it's like this whole thing was you get to a point where you spend, say, 6 months on a potential client. I don't know if that's normal or not, but you do the whole thing, you do the presentation, you do all this stuff, and it's like, well, it's I enjoy talking to you and all this, and I want to make it work and all this stuff. The whole cut the shit is like, like at a certain point you get to the point like, all right, cut the shit. Like, what are we doing? It's like you don't have to be. Don't give me the company lines here. Like, let's talk as people is my big thing, and that's the whole thing with like personal relationships as well, like friendships or significant others. But like from a career standpoint, when you're having that, whether it be a boss or someone below you or a client or whatever, it's like you go in there and you're like, we've been talking about this for so long. Like, when do you look at the scales balancing there, right? Where it's like, I don't want to run this person off and be too aggressive, but there is a time sometimes where you're like, cut the shit, like stop.
Well, you
just
talked
sit down and like, give me, what do you think? What do we have to make? Like, yes, I'm here to make a sale, but like, we're wasting our time if you're never going to do it. Like, what do we have to do to make this work for both parties? Like, stop doing this bullshit of, all right, 6 months turns into 12 months. Now we're 2 years into this relationship. You've never bought anything. I'm still going to call on you. Same thing with you, Jake. You'll run into this shit in your line of work now. Is like, you do all this stuff. You keep showing your face. You keep showing, and you're going to do it because you see something there, potential. But I don't know. Like, I just feel like, I really want to bring you in. I want to do this, but cash flow is not right. I don't have the room. I don't have the time to do this, whatever it is. It's not necessarily excuses. That's just where they're at. And I think this whole cut the shit thing is like, you don't have to necessarily say it like that, but this whole song and dance of not making the other person turned off or unhappy because you're finally getting to that point where like, look, this is what we're trying to do. This is what I need. This is what you're like. What do you need? Like, you kind of get to that point where it's like, all right, let's stop all this bullshit, the whole dance, the whole like, this is back and forth type thing. We're not going to do it now. I get that because you would have done it a while back. What do we need to do to make this happen for both parties? You know what I mean? That's
Right.
kind of this whole thing. Cut the shit is like, all right, stop the pleasantries. You know what I mean? I can wine and dine you. You can be super nice. You can accept all that stuff. But I hate to say this because everyone says this on the show. At the end of the day,
Drink.
Everyone take a drink. Jesus, I didn't want to say it. It's just
You had to.
It's so fitting. Drink.
So I think
At the end of the day, what do we do so there's actual progress? I'm not saying you gotta buy in, you gotta spend all this money from that point, or someone that you're in a friendship or a personal relationship with. It's like we're not progressing.
So
All we're doing is
ahead.
standing still by dancing around this and being in that one moment that is now 6 months, 12 months, whatever it is. It's like you keep saying you're looking at this stuff, and then I come back and I talk to you about this days later, weeks later, months later, and you're still at that point. Where do you say cut the shit? You tell me when you're ready, whatever it might be. But it's like I've given you my expectations or what I need from this relationship. Again, all aspects, all venues. But it's like you're not doing anything. You're not progressing.
You sit down and write a check for $10,000 to Dale and Brennan for Prestige Worldwide.
Worldwide.
No, so
Both of those.
Jake's only been with Crown Heads now for a couple of months.
Yeah.
And I'm sure he's going to run into it if he hasn't already. I know I did very early on when I had the same type of role that Jake does. But I had a customer that my second week on the job called me up and is like, how come you haven't visited me? I expect you to be at my shop every 2 weeks. And
2 weeks.
Exactly. So the very next week I was in their city and I went and visited the owner of that cigar shop. And I was like, look, you may have had a rep come visit you every 2 weeks because they lived in Chicago. I don't live in Chicago. I also have 7.5 states. Jake's, got a very large territory as well.
I haven't even counted.
So much so it's split up, and he's actually has to fly out to part of his territory. And I had a very genuine one-on-one with that shop owner. I was like, if you want me to visit you every 2 weeks and you're going to actually make an order every 2 weeks, maybe I can work around that. But if you're only going to order from me once every 2 months,
if you're a 50,
you're that often.
If you're $100,000 account,
because I'm not going to gain
week.
anything from it. Me showing up at your shop every 2 weeks makes you order once every 2 months. Like, there's no benefit whatsoever to me to go back to that territory, that part of the territory every 2 weeks. I've got, another 200 accounts that I have to go manage, and I have to visit them on a regular basis. I can't sit there and just drive out, hours out of my way just to go visit you. If you need something, I'll call you, or you can call me. I'll be open with you. Just let me know what you need, but also realize there are things that I need as well. Like, you don't make up as large a percentage of my sales as you think you do. So I got to worry about all these other people, not just you.
Yeah.
So whenever I'm selling something to somebody, I always try to view it as, do they actually need the product that I have? Yeah. Do I truly believe that they need what I have to sell to them? If I don't believe that they need my product, I will not push the sale on them because they don't need it. If I truly value that they need what I have, then it makes sense. I think kind of the shit can be a liberating feeling, especially in the sales world. And as Jay kind of makes his rounds, and he sees people second and third times, you'll see who is worth your time and who's not worth your time. And you will view, okay, this person might be talking or complaining or stuff like that, but they might not be worth his actual time on the road.
Which do you think is more important, to find out which customers are worth your time or which customers are not worth your time?
Well, it's the 80-20 rule, right? Like 20% of your customers contain 80% of your sales. So you should focus on those 80%. But you have all the little people and stuff, or little mom and pop or stuff like that aren't contributing volume wise. You should be able to figure out, do they have potential to move your product? Or if they don't have potential, that's okay. You should still visit them. You should still show your face so you don't get in trouble with your boss, your manufacturer. But you should be at some point realize this customer is not worth my time.
Yeah, I think the 80-20 rule that I'm familiar with is that, 80% of your people, right? Employees, customers, whatever, they are usually pretty easygoing and it makes sense, right? So it takes up whatever 20% of your time if you want to do that. The 20%, the top 10 that are more divas, and the bottom 10 that are just trouble.
Or they're the ones with always issues.
They take up all your 80% of your time. They take up so much. Like there's this vast majority that you should be really appreciating and putting time into that. But there's that top 10 that need more, the bottom 10 that don't want anything, but they want your time. They want to feel appreciated. And it's just this really tough situation to be in, because you don't, like, to your question there, Nate, I feel like you're going to give your opinion on that. What do you think your time is worth?
Well, it kind of reminds me of a conversation you and I had recently with someone outside of podcast.
Yep.
Where,
You guys talk outside of the podcast?
Yeah, we do.
All right.
It was actually after last week's episode.
Oh, after dark.
Yes.
After the BS.
But the gentleman we were talking to was telling us a story about, someone else that they know in that particular industry that focuses so much of their time and effort on the big boys that have a lot of money, that have a lot of shelf space, that have a lot of locations. They spend so much time and effort focusing on them,
making them happy,
that they ignore all the other guys, because they sit there and see if this one if these 5 customers can get me 80-90% of my goal, then why the hell should I worry about the other ones?
It's a fair conversation.
And it was. And when I was a rep, I never really had that type of customer. I never had someone that was that large of a percentage of my business. I never even had a single customer that was 10% of my overall business. But yet that customer actually wanted some of the most attention. I gave it to him, but I also realized that if I completely screw over the other 90% of my customers, and then all of a sudden something happens to that 5-10% of my customers, like say something happens and they go out of business, or they have to slow down what they carry. Oh shit, I just burned a bridge with everybody else. Now I got to try and make them, make up that number that's going to be missing. Like, so,
or if that one customer drops you,
yeah,
then that takes up a lot.
Well, and I was on the other side of that. I had one account that used to carry a large number of portfolios and brands in their shop, and they decided that they actually wanted to scale down. They wanted to focus on 10 to 12 brands, but go heavier on those brands. And that account originally was not that big in terms of total dollars. They were not that big of an account originally, but because I'd always gone there and I'd spent time with them, I didn't just pop in and be like, "Hey, is there anything you need?" Cool. I got another hour drive to my next job. I'm going to head out. I actually spent time talking with them, because they were isolated. They were kind of away from other accounts that I had by a significant drive.
Yeah.
So because I spent time and actually built that relationship up, when they scaled down what brands they were going to carry, I was one of the brands they were going to keep. And because I was one of the brands they were going to keep, they were going to increase their sales with me by more than 50%. Okay. So even though when I started visiting them, they weren't that large of an account, because I built that relationship, they then wanted to be a bigger account and were going to give me more of a percentage in their store.
Exactly.
Because I didn't just sit there and go, you know what, this is a $4,000 a year account. I'm not going to waste my time with them because they're so far out of the way from everyone else. I'm still going to visit them because, I just like meeting people. I like going to those shops.
Still money.
It's exactly, it's still money. And because they had made a business decision to kind of streamline their inventory, because I was one of the people that showed up on a monthly basis, not every 6 months, they wanted to continue. They wanted to reciprocate that attention.
So I think there's something that you're touching on. There's the smaller scale, there's the bigger scale, just like the personal thing. Like, for me, with like what we were talking about originally, like having this cookout and all that stuff, I had a support system. Kristen.
I try what I can. I can't do everything, but I try.
But no, like she not only did she obviously invite some of her friends, but like we did that together, right? So it was like, like hosting it, getting it out there, getting people there, providing some of the food, making sure everyone's like, there is a bit of a teamwork there. And I think that's something with the business side of it is very much apparent. It's about the sales manager. It's about the powers that be, the people above you that are sitting around. They're not in your guys' world. They're not going into the clients. They're not going into cigar shops. They think that things should work a certain way. The bigger you get, sometimes there's the more corporate side of it. There's more positions. There's more things, more moving parts of what should be, what shouldn't be, and all that stuff. But when it comes down to it, what actually provides paychecks for everyone, the business to succeed, is that the bigger picture sales, whatever you're selling, whatever puts money in the register, whether you're a small business or you're a big corporation, you have to sell shit.
Yeah.
So from a sales manager side of it, or the leader side of it, is that you have to be able to guide these people, or you are in that mode. Like in that example, if you grew a $4,000 account to $14,000 account, but the rest of your territory was down 50%, no,
that's not a good trade-off.
I appreciate your effort in this. Like that's a big win in a very small manner, right? You know what I mean? It's like you have to have the bigger goals being met, but those have to be communicated. And that's where this whole thing goes into it, is how you talk to people that are in your personal life to get things done around the house, get things done in your everyday life. From the business side of it, you want to hit these goals. What you were saying, about that, what we were talking about after the podcast last week, the powers that be, they don't fucking care as long as their numbers are being met. They come up with these quotas and all that stuff, and it's like,
doesn't matter where it's coming from.
Yeah, who the fuck cares? A good leader will say, all right, let me do this. You got all this. All right, so that's, you're hitting 90% of your quota with this. We're not setting your quota right because you don't, like, how much time are you spending? Like, you start diving in. You start having these conversations. What time are you spending on this? Why aren't these other accounts? So just take a basic 40 hours a week, right? So you have 40 hours a week, 160 hours a month on average, right? So 85% of your business is coming from these big accounts. Are you spending 85% of your time of the 160 hours a month with them?
Shouldn't be.
The answer typically is no.
Yeah.
So what are you doing with 20 hours out of your week? Why haven't these other accounts heard from you or seen you? Well, the reason is they're not held accountable. No one fucking cares until what you were saying. What if they turn you, like, what if that 85% says, we're going a different direction, we're going to cut you down 50%? You're like,
now shit. On all these small guys.
That's poor leadership. That's poor expectations. That's poor guidance. That's everything else, because we're so focused on this bullshit, but all this other stuff that actually puts money in the drawer, the reason that you're doing what you're doing, you're coasting at this point.
Yeah.
Do you want to do the actual work? Fuck no.
Well,
you don't want to do the actual work because you don't have to. But when shit hits a fan, what do? You get fired, you quit, whatever it is, you go to another company, you do it all over again because people are doing that.
Or you get those.
Go ahead, Spencer.
There are some shops though that'll actually tell their reps, like, hey, if you need a little bit extra to hit a quota or something, let me know.
Take a bigger picture from cigars.
But like I've seen, if you've got one account and let's say you don't give that account the amount of time they did, they still might be able to put up similar numbers. But let's say that one account drops by 25 grand, but because of all the time and effort you spent on another 100 accounts, all those other 100 accounts did just 1 grand more in business.
Sure.
Well, now you just made 100 grand extra. So even if you take away that 25 grand, because let's face it, when it comes to sales, a lot of your big boys, they're big boys for a reason. They're still going to buy whether you visit them on a weekly basis or not. But if you build that relationship up with everyone else, even if that big one drops a little bit, those other small ones that you built that relationship are going to more than make up for it.
Well, to that point is the response. This is why, Jake, I admire what you do. I don't know if I could ever get back in the corporate world because it gets to that point where it's like customer's always right type thing. But if that person that spends so much money with you and they treat you as such, they look down on you in that point where it's like, you need me. It's like, you're absolutely right. That's the cut the shit thing. Let's have a conversation. I absolutely do need you. What more do you need from me? Because I also have another 100 accounts that are smaller than you that I'm trying to service. Like my time is valuable as well. So as long as you're taken care of, if I have 40 hours a week or 50 hours a week, 80 hours a week, whatever it is, I'm putting forward like the effort for this. But you're just, the other side of it is that if you can get, like I saw a comment on here from Bobby here. It's like, yes, you shouldn't be punished if you can get 40 hours a week done in 30. But when you look at this, it's like the other 10 hours a week are the people that you just don't fucking care about because it's not affecting your paycheck. That's where I think that you're selling yourself short, because you look at that, if you're on commission, if you're doing these things that are really trying to do the nuts and bolts of the company and grow it, I think from a leadership standpoint, you should have some appreciation for your salespeople, the people below you, their time. So it's like, that's awesome that you got everything done in 20 hours out of the 40 hours, right? Fantastic. Hitting the numbers. How are these accounts doing? How is this side of your job going? Because as a leader, I'm looking at it as like, all I've been focused on is what I'm getting. My metrics are is that you're hitting your numbers, but my metrics also, I need that we're paying you this. I still need that work because these other things can bump up your metrics even further. You'll get paid more. We'll look better as a company. I'll look better. And if something falls out, the floor just comes out below you, then all of a sudden you have these other people that you can grow.
All right.
Spencer?
Yeah, you guys are getting a little bit in the weeds here. Just in general. So you had asked that, how do you cut the shit? How do you just say, hey, what do you actually need here?
Yeah.
To be. So I think as you grow as a sales professional, as you see your counts more, as your reputation can kind of stand on its own, you can be much more honest with a customer based on you've seen them 2, 3, 4, 10 times.
Mm-hmm.
You can have more direct talks with them, that you don't have to sell the whole story of this cigar comes from the Catalonia region and stuff like that. That story is fantastic, but in a couple years, you can say, hey, this cigar moves. This is the reason why it moves. Your other shop is doing this. And you can just speak plain facts to them.
Why is that?
Because you have established yourself as to, I am just saying, here are the facts. You also
have a personal relationship at that point.
Right. So you don't have to do this salesy thing. You can just say, here are the facts of my product. Here is why I think this product would be good for the store. And everyone is out there for themselves. So if that store, if that shop, if that corporation thinks that they will make more money selling your product, and if you can explain to them in simple English, if you sell this product, this will make you more money. That is the way to kind of cut the shit. That is the way to kind of go beyond just why in my world, cabinets, why my white is a prettier white than the other cabinets, why my blue is a better blue than the other guy.
It's a nice blue.
Thank you. But you can avoid those types of conversations. They can say, hey, I trust Jake. I understand that he's telling me what is reliable. I believe in him. And it has nothing to do with what brand he sells. It really doesn't. He could sell crown heads. He could sell anything else out there. But if they believe that what he is telling is the gospel, they will follow him. And if he decides to move to a different brand, they will pick up that other brand because of him, not because of the brand itself.
No, I agree with that. I mean, I guess what I was trying to get at is, again, you look at this, is you put the effort in, right? You do all these things you're talking about. There's also the aspect of, you rest on your laurels, you do all this stuff where you stop showing up, you stop doing all that stuff. It's like, I'm looking at this whole, like, the cut the shit topic is just, as I mentioned in the beginning, it's like, what is the balance of when there is something that is an issue, you have to do the politically correct thing. You have to be passive aggressive to get to it. When do you turn the switch to be like, enough?
So when I was saying that cut the shit can be kind of liberating, is if you have the customer that is taking up a lot of your time and is not producing, and you've given them here's enough rope, here's enough opportunities for you to prove yourself. If you have not proved yourself, you simply say to them, we don't want you as a customer.
Your expectations are not being met.
Right. And
on your side.
Right. And once you can have that and you can get rid of that customer that is not producing but causing you a lot of headaches and issues and time, that is a liberating feeling, because you could have, Jake, how many people do you see in a day?
I could see anywhere between 5 accounts to 8.
Okay. So let's just say you see 6 accounts a day and you have 5 meetings that go really well and you have 1 meeting that doesn't go well. That 1 meeting could take up so much that didn't go well, could take up so much mental energy
and time.
That it discounts the 5 other good meetings that you had that day.
Focus on the negatives.
Right. So if you can eliminate the negative, or just realize that percentage of my mental capacity, my mental energy, if you can cut that shit out of your day, or of your, hey, I go through all these customers and this is the one customer that's a red flag or a yellow flag or something like that, that'll make your journey, your sales day much easier, because
that customer's now a phone call.
You cut the shitty customer out. And sometimes that customer does volume, sometimes they don't. But if you can cut that, or figure out, okay, who's the one that's causing me issues, cut them out, it'll make your life a lot easier.
Do you tell that customer that? That's my side of this topic.
Yes, you give that customer enough rope to hang themselves. You give
yes.
them enough chances.
Yes.
You're not
I had that happen.
You're not blindsiding them. You say, this is how I like to do business.
But you let them make the demeanor of the conversation.
Right. You give them the opportunity to make their own decision, and they will make the decision for themselves.
You let them make an ass out of themselves or not.
Yeah, and ass out themselves or not produce, so that when you do pull the carpet out from them, it's not a surprise, and it's beneficial to both parties. It gives you an opportunity to walk away from them, and it gives them an opportunity to sell your stuff. And if they don't hit that opportunity, they know why you're no longer dealing with that customer. And it's really tough to walk away from a customer. It's a lot easier to maintain an existing relationship with a current customer, a current friend, a current significant other, than it is to start a new. It's a lot easier than to open up a new account, start a new friendship, start a new relationship. It's a lot easier that way, which is why people hang on to these relationships.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
And that's basically what I'm doing across like the
Northeast
seaboard
to clean up your territory. You're trying to see who produces, who doesn't, who's worth your time, who's not worth your time. But once you clean up that territory, or once you clean up your friend relationships, hey, I got 10 friends. No, you don't. You got 5 good ones. But once you realize to focus on those ones, it's going to make every other journey, every other relationship be much more valuable and much more enjoyable as well too.
Well, I agree. It's very impactful. Absolutely.
Profound.
No,
Okay.
not profound. Very impactful. Very accurate. Go ahead, Jake.
I think like if I'm speaking on my own experience, like I don't know, I spent 6 years trying to get to the point that I'm at now.
Really?
And so, yeah, basically.
Okay.
So, I mean, for me, it's a little bit different because I'm going back to the ground floor, even though this was kind of my goal. And, I'm going from being a GM of a highly sought after business and highly,
destination.
Yeah, a destination, but that's highly profitable and, could have taken me somewhere, that I may have not have seen, but this is what I wanted. So like I'm living what I was wanting and I hit my goals. So now I'm trying to figure out, well, what are my next goals? How do I keep moving forward? And as far as that stands with the sales, I went from, last week I flew from Indianapolis to Rochester, New York, had a rental car from Rochester, New York, stayed in Buffalo for 2 days, drove back to Rochester, had a multi-vendor on Wednesday, and then flew out Thursday morning from Rochester to Portland, Maine, and then drove 2 hours south near Boston and then met 2 accounts. And one of those accounts was, I texted him the night before and I said, hey, are you going to be in tomorrow? And I had never, met this guy in person, but he says, well, I wish you would have given me more notice. Okay, fair. Next time I'll give you a fucking, next time I'll give you a fucking week.
How much notice?
Yeah. So I'll give you a week notice next time before I even fly out. We'll set up a time. I know that now. And so I, pulled up my bootstraps and I drove 2.5 hours north to the place that the only reason why I drove out that far was to have a big event at an account that has every line in the Ace Prime, Crowned Heads, and Osgener Family Cigars line. So, they were the real reason why I was out there, but you got to make do with what you have and make the best of it. So like I'm in a different situation where, I'm not gonna bullshit here and say that, Crowned Heads is a smaller brand. They're still building, and they're building on top of what they've done for the last 11 years. And
right.
So
could you have done your job now if you didn't do the Rocky piece?
With just your experience
with the
net tinderbox.
You with the good questions.
Can I answer that?
Go ahead, Steve.
You know what I'm going to say.
No.
What?
So I will say this. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, I think
I'm not giving an attitude. I'm laughing.
No. I if anyone has known this podcast from the very beginning,
if anybody knows me better,
yeah. So yeah,
so
appreciate that. Those kind words.
Wow.
This is one of those things. Jake is. I'm glad you're a part of this. I wasn't going to talk about this. This is just in conversation here. Is that you flash back 5 years ago. We started this podcast 4.5 years ago, and all that stuff. And at that age, and you were younger, not just because you were younger than you are now, but you were younger in any profession, right? Early 20s and all that stuff.
Yeah.
This topic,
vinegar.
This topic is very fitting, and it had nothing to, because I didn't think you were going to be a part of this when I did this, but I love that you are, because the cut the shit thing, you walked into a room with that mentality.
Oh yeah.
Right. So that was my whole thing of you balance the scales of fluffing things up. You do, like, yes, if things are going bad, you're passive aggressive. If you're trying to church it up, you're trying to do these things where it's like the goal is to do this, and you can be the unfortunate bad stereotype for those that are used car salesmen, but you're the used car salesman, and you're trying to like make the sale at all costs, right? You know, you'll tell them anything you want. You were on the opposite side of that 5-6 years ago when I met you, where it was like, it's straight to the point. You don't want this, fuck you, you're missing out. Now you've gotten to the point, based on, I think, that to the question, I will say this from my viewpoint with Jake. I love to see this where you're at, is because the success that's going to come from that is that you're still walking that fine line, because I know you at the core is that you have to do this and you enjoy doing this. But when someone's giving you the runaround, there's a bit of a biting of the tongue. There's a bit of, you know what I mean? It's you're going to accept no sometimes, but you're going to have to learn on how you can turn that. This is a development stage of sales and personal relationships, that you know these people. Like that person, when you said that, you drove that way, you texted them the day before, I wish you to give me more notice. 5-6 years ago, you'd be like, I just gave you notice. What the fuck? Are you not in your you're not in your fucking shop? What the fuck?
True.
Like I just gave you fucking notice. Like, you don't want it? Fuck you. You can't have my cigars. Now it's like, okay, sir, what kind of notice do you need so that when I come in from Indianapolis to the East Coast and I plan my trip in whatever 4 or 6 months, should I plan it now? What date works for you? And you work through that. That is the growth side of it. You know, that is some of that.
Well, it's the maturity.
You're still in that mentality, but it's about how you address it. You're direct.
It's allowing, it's like what you were saying, Steve, is like when you decide to make that move, when you decide to cut the shit. And there's a very fine line, and I think you can do it. I mean, Spencer is very, very successful when it comes to his business. I mean, you can see it if you look at his social media and like the jobs that they do, and it's really impressive. And you can't do those types of things without knowing something about, one, working with people, two, allowing yourself to have humility, but then the third is understanding when to say, okay, well, you know, I'm glad we've had this like whining and dining moment. Are you going to write a check or not? And I think for me, like I said, I'm in this growing stage still. And I don't like mentioning how, I mean, I always hate bringing up the fact that I am younger, but it's the truth, is I'm still growing, and I feel like I have a lot more. I feel like I have a lot more humility than I did, 3 or 4 years ago, because when you're in a setting like Burn and you're the head of a $6 million operation and you're dealing with 300 different people, you have to understand that you are in the power, and you have to have that humility to be able to say, okay, well, you ordered this drink and you're a dumbass, but that's what you say in your head. But then secondarily, you're like, okay, ma'am, I apologize. The drink wasn't made correctly. I'll take this off your bill. What else can I do for you? And I think, and and that's what the sales world is. And it's easier for people, I mean, it would be easier if I was working for a company with like Altadis or Fuente or JC Newman, it's like, or Drew Estate, they have the product that everybody wants.
I disagree, because then you're standing behind the brand versus you.
But Cigars is a little different, because I understand what you're saying, but with Cigars it's a little different, because you're dealing with a luxury product that really nobody else. Well, actually, you should know this, because you deal with luxury products, Spencer. Yeah. So I
will have to want it.
I don't know. I guess the way in my thinking, I'm growing a brand. I'm growing a territory. My cutoff point is, like, for example, I had a guy, I went to Buffalo, New York, like I said, and he's we sat down, and I understand that the first time that I go to all these accounts, I'm not hitting as many accounts as I should, because I'm spending more time at the accounts, because this is the first time that they're seeing me. That's the first time that they're seeing Jake Sanders.
They're buying from Jake Sanders.
Yeah. So, and people buy product from people they like.
Exactly.
So,
Well, to that sense, Jake, you have an interesting hurdle to overcome, but it's a great opportunity.
Yeah, and that's the way I look at it.
Yeah, the hurdle you have is the territory that you cover was previously covered by the national sales manager, who, because they had so many other responsibilities, couldn't cover that territory as much as a regular full-time rep would. So that's the hurdle you have to overcome, because you have to build that relationship as the new guy in town.
And I have to mend the relationships that necessarily weren't there in the first place.
Yeah.
So
but that also means there's a huge potential for growth, because you're their regular face.
You're cleaning up the territory.
Can I go back?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, like, it means a lot to me that, I guess, in my eyes, the way I look at it is Miguel bestowed that honor on me because it's his territory.
Oh, and he is the face.
And like, he wouldn't have put anybody, and he wouldn't have put anybody else in that space if he didn't think that they were going to perform.
Yeah.
So that speaks volumes to me, and that's where, like, my humility comes in and my responsibility as that rep.
Can I ask you a question here? I want to go back to a point where you were at Burn Lounge, right? And I think this is a topic oriented. Is you mentioned, like, oh yeah, ma'am, I understand that the drink's not what you wanted. When do you deal with that? Again, going back to the customer is always right type of a mentality. You did that.
Yeah.
There's like, did you have any situations as the humidor manager, the assistant GM, the GM in that time you were there, and that nice business, like, it's all about presentation. Did you ever call out someone where you're like, where you in your mind, where professionally you can cut the shit, where you're like, look, stop ordering drinks. Right. You obviously don't know, you don't like what we're doing. Like, we're not going to keep, like, giving you free drinks. We're not going to keep comping this stuff. Was there ever a point that you had that situation?
Yeah, countless times. So
that's where I'm going with this a little bit, where the communication on the one side, you're like, oh yeah, I'll be professional.
Well, and
sorry about that. We'll pour you another one. You're not happy with this. What else would you like? They order the same thing, or they order something else, and they're not happy with that. And all of a sudden, it's like you realize that they are just getting.
So is this cut the shit?
This is, yeah.
Okay.
It's that's the topic, right? So it's like, at that point, you're just like, all right, we've tried one time, 3 times,
we can't make you happy.
Like, you're not happy. We don't want everyone's business. We want the business of people that make money for us, right?
Yeah.
That is
for you to enjoy yourself, so you come back.
It's not about just like making money off of people, but it's like, we want you to have a good experience. But if you're not having a good experience and all you do is complain about everything that we do, there's the door.
So here's an example. So this is, like Spencer would say, and what he said was you give them enough rope.
Yeah.
So you kind of, and it's kind of like a mischievous way of doing things, but I realized, like, how much it worked, because you weed out, you cut the shit and you weed out the people that are supposed to be there and the people that aren't, real quick.
Right. That's
meaning that, so say it's not like a big group of people come in, and you have, they ask for every Buffalo Trace product under the market. They first asked for Weller, or Weller Antique, and they asked for Weller Special Reserve.
Does that happen?
Oh yeah, all the time.
Just they go straight Buffalo Trace.
Yeah, all the time. And so
it's hard to find. They think they know their shit, right?
Yeah, and so, like, as a server, I thought our servers, knew, enough to be. It sounds wrong, but they knew enough to be dangerous. Yeah. So they knew enough to sell, but when it came down to we didn't have time to train, 15 servers and try to figure, do all this stuff. Anyways, so my thing is if they came back with 2 options that we didn't have in stock, I would go directly to the table. And so I would say, okay, gentlemen, I realize that you've ordered both these 2 things. They're highly allocated. I apologize that we don't have them at the moment, but this is the stuff that we do have. Which one do you want?
Okay.
What would you like?
You're still providing them options.
Yeah, like it, and it's not in that demeanor. It wasn't in that demeanor, but it's still saying, it's cutting the shit and making them understand that you can't walk into every bar on God's green earth in America and say that you want to have Weller foolproof that that's highly allocated. So why would you even ask?
You're trying.
Well,
you're trying your best.
if they do ask, then again, this is two-sided, right? It's this whole thing, right? If they come in, they ask that, that's all they know, maybe. But if the bartender says, "I'm sorry, we're out of that," if they're getting upset about that, it's like, all right, well, here's the drink menu.
Right.
This is what we do have.
Well, and they would always get mad because we would put asterisks or stars next to the allocated items, and it's like, well, you don't have this, and you don't have this, and you don't have this, and it's like, okay, well, that's why the GM is coming over to you right now.
I think
So
that's
offer a
It's
solution.
a great move.
solution.
And personally giving a spiel on what we do have. Now,
That's great. I think that's great.
Do you guys have cigars? Have you gone into the humidor yet? Why don't you go into the humidor first and grab a cigar and then come back, and I'll come back and I'll pair a whiskey that you may not have had.
There you go.
I think it's a fantastic solution.
Good solution.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's it. It's literally all about creating an experience, especially with everything that we do, whether you're selling kitchen appliances and kitchen layouts like what you do, Spencer, whether you're selling cigars. I mean, I tell everybody that I know about the Tinderbox Easton, because that was, even though that is such a small space and place, you as a humidor attendant or associate, whatever, at Tinderbox Easton, you have to sell the cigar. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. They don't get to touch it. They don't get to smell it through the cellophane like a dumbass. They don't. You have to.
It's a good year of the cellophane.
You have to sell the cigar. And that has translated exponentially. All these experiences have translated exponentially into what I'm doing now, because even though that, like, one of my goals was to be by myself, and that way I didn't have to manage 40 different employees. Now I'm worrying about myself, but it's 10 times difficult when you're going to a part of the country that you've never been before.
Now you're managing 200 accounts.
Yeah, and you're managing 200 plus accounts, and you're going to a place that you've never been before, and you're meeting and trying to engage with someone over email or phone call, or maybe you don't even have their cell number, and you're just calling the store saying, "Hey, is Ricky there?" And
fucking Ricky, man.
And you're just going in, and you have to be humble enough to realize that, they may get pissed because every time I've walked into new accounts, like since I started, I'm saying, "Hey, I know I'm coming by unannounced, and I apologize. This is going to be the one and only time. I'm just trying to get contacts, and I want to have a cigar with you. Is that cool?"
I would use the fact that you're new for the next 5 to 10 years. I'm being dead
5,
serious.
10 months.
I know,
I use it all the time now. I'm new.
It's like that server at a restaurant that makes a mistake. I'm sorry, this is my first day.
No, but what happens when they ask?
You tell me.
But what happens when they ask for
I want to know more about what is. Tell me about your bit, because you already know about Crown Heads. You already know about your business.
But what happens when they ask you about your expertise on the brands?
Well,
you can't just say
right. That's where you can shine.
You can't just say you're new.
But that's where you can shine. But say, I'm new. I want to know. People like talking about themselves. I want to know about your account.
That's why you ask people about
Here's
stuff.
my. This is what I say.
Son of a bitch.
Well,
this is what I say.
I thought we had a moment.
Good, Jay, because I think I have an answer for that. But go ahead.
Well, this is what I say. I say, look, I've been in retail for almost 6 years, so I already know what you want. I already know what you're trying to mingle. I know what boxes you want for free, but this is the order that I need to get those free boxes. So why don't we cut the shit and make that order today, and I'll send you a bundle.
What I would do with you, and what my dad
Don't
taught
talk
me,
to me about what you do
what
with
my
me.
grandpa taught my dad is try to just get something.
Yeah.
Even if it's small, even if it's a box or whatever is small in your world, try to get something small, but get something from them, whatever big, small as you can. And then next time go for something bigger, but just try to do something.
Yeah. It's a gradual.
Right. And it's going to take years to get to where you want to be. But if you're there 4 years, the fruit of your labor will pay off. I think you got a great mentality, man. I think you do.
You've always believed in me, Spencer. So thank you.
Well,
No, but you also know sales. You know, when people try to sell you shit, you know, if someone's trying to sell you something, but it's not sales. It's not used car salesman. I don't enjoy when people kind of compare that.
No, I'll never be that way.
It's a partnership. It's a relationship. You're not here for what you can do lately. You're here for the long term.
Right.
And if they view that you're here for the long term versus what can you do for me now, they'll appreciate that on your next visit.
Exactly.
Well, and I think that's what's helped Jake for this current role. And Jake, I don't know if you saw the comment that I tagged you in, but I recommend you look at that and read it. But I think part of the advantage that Jake has is his retail experience working at the Tinderbox, but then also him working at the Burn Lounge, being the humidor manager before becoming the GM. Because now when he goes to a shop that starts having these questions and, you know, tries to tell them about how hard it is to try and carry, you know, everything from everybody, Jake has the experience and knowledge to be able to address that because he's been on the retail side. So he knows if a customer comes in looking for something specific that shop doesn't carry, he knows how to recommend something else to that customer. But he also understands that retail shops are limited in because of their space. They're limited by how much they can carry. They can only carry so much. They can only please so many people. And, you know, I'm sure Jake will see it more as he continues in this endeavor. But I've definitely seen it in my decade in the industry where, you know, there are some people that they will buy from the people that come and visit them, come and spend the time with them.
And they will show a cigar by the person that they like.
Yeah. And so, you know, they
Don't glance over that.
Well, it's not just that they like, it's when you're not there, they're doing it's like, what are the conversations of being had about you when you're not there?
If you're a cigar salesman or like whatever type of salesman, you have to teach, if you're selling a product at wholesale, you have to teach the people that are going to sell your product to like a regular consumer or a guest on how to sell your own product
and why your product is better or worse than the other guy. And if it's worse,
and
tell them why it's worse.
You also take care of it.
That's basic sales.
It's not basic because people don't do that.
No, you're both right.
Well, people are stupid.
You're both right.
I've seen this from my experience working retail as many years as I have in this industry. If there's a rep that comes into the shop and they treat the owner with respect, they treat the employees with respect, they sit down, have a conversation with us, you know, they tell us about their product. Maybe they give us a cigar. That's always great. But if we like that person, then to Spencer's point, even when that sales rep is not in the shop, when someone comes in looking for recommendations, we are more likely from a retail standpoint to sell cigars from people we like.
1,000%. 1,000%. That's how it works.
Maybe that's just me.
No,
Steve might be something different.
That's how it works.
I mean, Spencer, give us like an example.
Wait, real quick.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Why do they like you?
I don't know.
Wait, what?
Well, like so when I was a rep, if I
You
visit,
don't know why do they? Well, how do you get them to like you? Why do they like you? Why are they promoting your product?
well, so
What did you do in that interaction, Spencer and Jake, on that front? Nate, you said retail side. Why do they like you?
So from my experience, coming into that shop, giving them attention that maybe they don't always get from every single rep,
Okay, so attention.
giving them the attention, sometimes telling them information about a product that they can get excited about and relay to a customer. But then also when I was a rep, there would be some accounts I would go to that any employee that was working that day, I would give them a cigar.
Okay.
And I would build that relationship with those employees because then even after I left, I still left a lasting impression on that employee. So that way, when a customer comes in and they're open for suggestions, I'm in that retailer's mind.
It's called tip of the tongue.
Well, and it's not always dealing with the manager; it's dealing with the people that's actually in the
salespeople,
humidor
that's the
selling
one
the
that push it.
cigar.
So
Spencer, to you, same question.
What's the question?
Why do people buy from you?
People buy.
Why do they like you?
Okay, so a couple. So
That can get complicated.
at the bottom line, it's can they make money from my product?
That's how you look at it.
That's how I look at it.
Okay.
From their point of view, if I gave them the
Good point.
attention, like Nate gave them attention, if you persuade them, you give them
No.
a cigar.
You're going to sit like no. From your viewpoint, your side of it, where you're selling to the vendor, right?
Right.
You're not selling to the consumer.
I understand. You're selling to the vendor.
So I'm saying
and
from
by
a different aspect.
I understand. So by Nate giving someone a cigar, which is a $10 or $15 or whatever investment, that is nothing in the grand scheme of things. But if you're not going to see that customer for another 3 months, that $15 could go a very long way.
Absolutely.
So you are.
So you're saying that people like you because you gave them something.
You gave them something is the initiative. You can't just hand it out. You have to show them why this $15 is worth it. You're teaching them something that they didn't already know.
Why do they listen to you?
Because in Jake's case, in
over
my
the
case,
other 5 sales,
he is.
In your case,
I am the expert in my field. You become the expert on your specific brand of cigars. You're telling someone when they look at that case, here's 50, I don't know.
but besides cigars, how are you an expert in
Thank you, Jake.
kitchenware?
Thank
How are
you.
you an expert
Some of that
in
just
kitchen?
some of that just comes with time.
But how? Explain that.
Why do they buy from you?
So
Why did they buy
Why do they
from
buy your
Spencer?
product?
Answer the hard question.
Jake, you've learned so much.
Yeah,
over the years.
it's like the grasshopper has become.
Jake,
I mean-
I'm gonna tune you out here. You're taking over the podcast.
So some of it is, I saw Bobby.
Oh, we
Hirschman-
lost Jake. We lost Jake.
So I
I'm
saw
so
Bobby
sorry.
Hirschman said
It's so great to see the young ones grow up.
It's the gift of gab and stuff like that. I view it as I already know what I know, but if I can make that person feel more valuable and feel like they have something to teach me.
I want to hear an
And-
example. I want to hear an example.
I know one. I can give one, but
Go ahead.
So when I was a rep, I went into a retail establishment, and
I want to hear Spencer. I want to hear Spencer give an example. Of
Spencer
why-
may need to think of an example. But I went to a retail establishment, and I'd been there before, and I gave the people that were working there samples of the product. And then I actually hung out in the lounge with some of their customers. And there were too many customers there for me to give out a sample to those customers. And this is back in the day when a cigar rep could actually pass out cigars to customers.
Exactly.
Can't do that anymore.
No.
But I was I was hanging out.
Shut your mouth. Shut your mouth.
I was hanging out with the customers, just talking with them, being one in the lounge. And then one of the customers asked me what I did, and I mentioned I was a cigar rep. And they said, "Oh, what are you passing out?" I said, "Well, I'm not passing out anything." And they were actually taken back by that because they were probably used to every time a cigar rep came in and they were in the shop, that rep giving them a cigar. And they were like, "Why aren't you passing anything out?" I said, well, let's take it. There's 8 of you hanging out in this lounge. If I give every single one of you a $10 cigar, you're going to hang out here for the next hour, hour and a half, smoking a cigar, but you're not putting any more money into the register. And ultimately, that register is what's going to, buy cigars for me and pay my bills. So what I would do is I would make a compromise and say, I'll tell you what, you buy a couple cigars from my brand, and then I will give you a cigar. You support the store, and I'll give you a cigar. And they're like, well, how do I know if I like your product? I'm like, well, tell me what you do like, and I'll find something that's in the humidor of our brand that fits your palate. But I'm not going to sit there and try and make the customer happy by pissing off the owner of that store. Because I had some store owners, if there was one customer in the store and I gave that customer a free cigar, that pissed off the owner.
Yeah.
To the point where that owner literally came up to me and said, don't you ever hand out a cigar in my store again.
Yeah, because you're not selling it. They're
That's
not making
exactly.
money.
He's losing $10.
So that's
cutting
why
the shit right there.
Yeah, so that's why then when those customers
Son of a bitch.
would say something like, why aren't you giving me a cigar? Tell you what, let me clear it with the owner. I'll do a 2-in-1, a 3-in-1 right now. You buy a couple of my cigars from the shop,
Yep.
put more money into their register, and then if it's okay with them, yeah, I'll absolutely give you a cigar.
That's the point of these right here.
Yeah, support the shop first, and then
Good-
I'll take
good
care of
product
you.
placement.
I think
Because you're not the one paying the bills. The individual customer from a retail standpoint, when you're selling cigars to a shop, the customer is not the one directly paying the bills. The store is. The store has to carry your product. They have to place an order. If you make them happy, then they will recommend your product to the customer. And then it works uphill that way. You don't sit there and necessarily go straight to the consumer. You got to make the person who's actually got the checkbook happy, because there's a lot of times, in other retail establishments that I've worked, where sales reps would come in and they focus so much attention just on the customers or just on the staff working there. They're not actually making an impression with the person who has the checkbook. If the person who has the checkbook doesn't like you, they're not going to buy from you. You have to work on that relationship.
Spencer.
Okay, so Jake, do you know why people think that people are charming?
Enlighten me.
Okay, so my natural personality is to ask questions
Charming.
because I'm inquisitive, right?
That is very true from your
Okay.
21
You worked
episodes
on that,
the
though.
podcast.
Right.
Have you not worked on that?
But-
Have
but
you not worked on
I
that?
have worked on it.
All right. Well,
So you
don't
also-
glance over that.
Okay, so you have to. Most people think that another individual is charming.
I mean, you're a good-looking man,
Thank
so
you.
I
but
don't.
It's if
Not that
they,
good looking,
If they
I mean-
ask questions about somebody else, because most people like to talk about themselves.
It's true.
So
This is reevaluate every interaction you had with Spencer.
okay, so but
They're
my
all
natural
questions. It's all- he
inclination
has- he
is
has
to
4 or
ask-
5
is to ask
questions.
questions.
He has 4 or
But-
5 questions before he ever says hi.
Okay, but I know what I want to get out of somebody in a sales relationship, but I also need to know what they actually want.
So what are you trying to
So-
get out of me when you ask me like 4 or 5 questions?
With you, it's just a friendship. But
Your-
if I was trying to,
Your mother's
if,
maiden name,
if I was
your
trying
street you
to-
grew up in.
if
your-
I was trying to
Your
sell
first
you
pet's
something,
name.
I will ask enough questions that you will tell me what you want to buy.
I mean, when we move back to Columbus, I don't know if I'll be able to afford your kind of stuff, but maybe
Just
one
saying.
day.
He's also a realtor now.
Oh shit!
You will
Is your
tell
name
me
Stacy?
I
by
got some-
getting to know somebody, by getting to know these
No, you're right.
accounts.
You're right.
They will tell you what they want to buy.
True.
And you are not going to be selling to them. You're going to be giving them what they want to buy.
It's good
They
advice.
they will tell you the answers if you ask the right questions
Very good at
versus you
Yep.
just telling them what you have to sell.
So there's a lot of effort there, right?
There's
there's all-
effort, there's time.
There's honesty, right?
100%.
You have to
There's
learn.
no
their-
bullshit. There's no bullshit.
Listen,
no bullshit.
Listen, I gotta say this is that being genuine is people can like cut through that stuff if you're not being genuine.
they
Being
can see
genuine,
through it.
they can see through it. But I mean,
They
like
cut
you,
through the shit.
Yes.
they cut through
Boom,
the
baby.
shit.
All right, closing remarks.
No,
We're
you don't
getting-
get to make that
We
call.
are
Nailed
we
it.
are getting close to that. No, I think that everything I'm listening to you guys with this is it's about being like why are you going in there? You know, if you have this whole thing, you have the song and dance, you have the sales pitch, you do that, you're not mirroring the customer, you're not learning from the customer, you're not learning from the individual that's in your life. You have like again, I've had friends that again that they're non-existent to a point.
Okay.
Much like a client or a customer that they give you the runaround, they do all that stuff. You show up, you give them invitations. Hey, you want to hang out? You want to do all this stuff. There is a bit of a long game if you do it the right way, and the best way to do it is that you do this. You're genuine. You're honest.
That's all you got. All you got as a salesperson is your reputation.
All you
But
have as a person,
there is a
As
bit of
person. You're right.
there is a bit of the cut the shit. You are a salesperson, right?
But I like your point, Steve, because we haven't talked about like the personal aspect of things.
Oh,
We
here
haven't
go.
talked about like if like somebody like someone that we know, Steve, where you invite someone to your wedding, but they don't invite you to their wedding. It's like I don't.
Still
like,
your best man, right?
well, you are my best man.
Jesus, I
But-
thought it was just like what were you doing on
Better
live
man,
air?
better man.
But no, I'm talking about
Hearing that,
I'm talking about like that's the things that like you guys were talking about the happy birthday thing earlier. Like I had a
Right.
best friend in college that yeah, we haven't talked to each other in like 4 years really, and we haven't really hung out, but we've both been busy, we've both been very driven on our aspects, and he lives in Ohio and I'm in Indy now, you know, so it's one of those things where I think, you know, I text him like happy birthday, and you know I got no response. So
Yeah.
it's like one of those things where it's like, do you take that personally or you just take it as like
No, you got your
Okay.
answer. You got your answer.
so? And then you think about certain things as far as like your personal appearance and like I mean I don't think like a lot of I talked to Alicia a lot about like my I think men especially like have a lot of like inner demons that don't get answered a lot.
Okay.
And what I mean by that is I think there's a lot of things where men like they think about their appearance just as much as women. They think about how they look, how they act in real life, especially in today's world, about what they say.
that's
And-
everyone. That's everyone.
I know, but one thing that's getting misconstrued in today's world is the masculinity standpoint, and how you're not allowed to show. You know, everybody's about like we want to show like the special emotion of a person and the special, but if you show anger, you're the bad guy. Like
Okay.
it's okay to be angry at something. It's okay to be upset at something. It's okay to be mad. It's okay to understand that
It's okay to be frustrated.
it's okay to be frustrated and understand that you're working towards something, but nobody else can see that. It's okay to it's okay to see that 4 years ago you were at the height of your physical career and stature, and you've worked so hard for your professional career and stature like myself, and now I've gained 60 pounds.
Okay.
It's a balance.
So now cutting the shit for me is understanding that, I mean, what did I just say? Like at the beginning of the podcast, I had zucchini like boats with chicken and fucking rice in them to try like, so like I'm cutting the shit with myself and understanding that I have to get back to where I was.
Good.
Why?
And because I'm not happy with my physical appearance. I've
That's
made it.
that
I've made it.
conversation with the mirror.
I've made it with myself. I've made it to my professional goal, right? And I have the freedom with a company like Crowned Heads to set my own schedule.
Wow.
And I don't have to worry about 40 other employees and go to bed at 5 o'clock in the morning and wake up at 2 and get called at 3 p.m. about some bullshit that's the air conditioning went out. All I have to worry about is setting my schedule a month in advance, and I get to work out and lift and get back to the man that I know that I'm supposed to be.
Yeah.
So you're cutting the shit. You realize that that's something you need in your life.
Yeah, and understanding that, like, not only am I getting older, but you have to nip this shit in the butt real quick, because as you get older, it's easier to fall out of shape.
Sure.
It's easier to lose that testosterone. It's easier to lose a part of yourself, and by the time you know it, a good part of 50 years is gone. And you can't. It's not that you can't, but it's harder to get back from that. And I'm trying to nip that shit in. Like, there's a million things going on in my head, like, every day about that.
Yeah.
So Jake, I don't think that the problems that you're dealing with now are just different problems than you were dealing with 4 years ago. They're just different. They never
I'm not
go.
saying they're problems.
No,
I'm
they don't. They
There are
just
problems.
change. There
are problems.
Or I should. Problems might not be the right word, but
It is.
What you're dealing with now is different than what you're dealing with 4 years ago. So there's just different stuff now than you were dealing with 4 years ago. It's important to realize that what you're dealing with now is just different than there was 4 years ago, and to address them.
There are problems, though.
But
Okay.
addressing
Address them. Just realize what you're dealing
and
with
being
now.
knowledgeable of
Right.
that is literally what we're talking about, is cutting the shit with yourself and understanding that these are the things that you have to do, and you don't get to you can't wait for that right time. That's a big lesson that I've learned in the last couple of years.
Well said, my friend. Well said.
Is that you can't wait for that right time, because
There's never a right time.
there isn't.
You adapt.
Isn't.
And you're
adapt.
also no longer the young buck.
It's hard to understand that at any age. Mentally, to understand that you have to, if you feel a certain way, the only person standing in your way is yourself.
That's the mirror conversation.
And that's why I wanted to bring that up, because we talked about sales for an hour and a half, and we didn't talk about you and I and Spencer and I and Nate and I. So, I mean, that's the big, I think that's more important than our fucking jobs.
You're right. If you don't have your health, you got nothing, bro.
I also feel like it fuels your jobs, right? If you have to start, and we always talk about this in the podcast, it's always that, like, how do you start, right? It's the very tight inner circle, which starts with yourself, and then you can take care of everyone else around you.
Yeah, you have to love yourself before you can love someone else.
Exactly.
And Alicia and I we just had an argument last night about it.
Perfect.
About how, like, now it's taken this long. I was gone 6 days last week, and I still see Alicia more now with this new job.
That's amazing.
Than I did working at Burn.
Well, blame tonight on me.
And that's not no. Hold on. That's what I'm saying.
You gave him an out.
What I'm saying is that our conversation, cutting the shit, is like, we're getting married in a year, and obviously Steve being a best man.
Cheers to that, bud.
And thank you. And
no,
but when you have, I think, is like going on to a relationship aspect of the whole conversation and cutting the shit, it's having that conversation about how I feel as a man and how she feels as a woman.
Yeah.
Am I fulfilling her needs, as far as, do you want the, like, she's a person that responds better to what's the term? It's based on action as far as like cleaning stuff around the house and
acts of service.
Acts of service. She feels that brings
love language.
Yeah, that's her love language, is acts of service. So I have to do those things to make her feel that I love her.
You're spot on, bro.
Besides
you're
other
smart,
things.
bro.
But I'm completely different. I'm opposite.
She's got to do something else to fulfill your love language.
I don't care about the dishes being done or the sweeper being done or laundry. I mean, I do. Those are very nice gestures, and it's appreciative, and I don't have to worry about my clothes being like she picked last Tuesday. She picked up my dry cleaning. Like that was amazing. That's amazing. But I am more of a, I don't know what you want, like love language as far as like touching and feeling.
Physical touch.
Yeah, physical touch and words and talking to each other and that kind of thing. So
but if you do your acts of service, she will give you more physical touch, is how it's how it's supposed to work.
But that's one of the things we were talking about. And you know, we've been together for literally 8.5 years. It was August 28th, was 8.5 years. And you talk to each other and have that conversation with each other. And I don't believe that people have that conversation with each other, especially if they've been married. I mean, they could be married for
conversation.
It's having the conversation and being honest with each other and cutting the shit.
Thank you.
It's well said, man. It's insightful for a man who's engaged. If you can understand that now, you'll have a very happy life.
I've never, Steve, all three of you guys know, I've never strayed away. I would rather have a difficult conversation and get down to it than deal with heartache and
you're nipping it in the bud.
And deal with a problem that otherwise could be solved. And people need to learn to have the conversations, the hard conversations. That's what cigars and whiskey and rum and whatever you like drink with if you don't drink, fine. But if you have a cigar with somebody and you sit down and you talk to a bunch of men or women, like you need to be able to have a conversation with them and understand like who they are and understand who the people are around you and give your whole heart to the conversation. And then you get to decide.
Starts with yourself though, right?
And yeah, but then you get to decide whether just like in sales, then you get to decide whether their time and what they're saying is worth your time. And then at that time you can say, okay, well, I'm done with this conversation. I think nice to meet you.
Cool. I agree.
And I didn't mean to blow out the.
No, dude, you're spot on, dude.
Get it out there.
You got your good head around it, Jake. You got your head around it, man.
I wanted to add that aspect of this whole conversation because, unbeknownst to me, I didn't even know that this was the topic tonight.
So nice to see him grow up.
I absolutely
fairly typical, man. Welcome back to the Bourbon BS podcast.
We do this every Wednesday.
We miss you, bud.
Oh,
yeah. So sorry about that.
No, you don't.
apologize,
Why are you
dude.
saying
You're
sorry?
spot
No,
on.
you
Spot on,
shouldn't.
dude.
That's the whole thing.
Spot on.
Go ahead. You keep talking.
Oh, why you guys talk off the mic?
You want another drink, Steve? Cheers.
Cheers, bud. Yeah. I miss you pouring.
I know I have good pours.
Well, I'll say this about the cut the shit thing. Like what you're talking about is I love seeing that. I love seeing you grow. I've known you a long time. And I think that you have this developing mindset, which is good to see with your career, with Alicia, most importantly. I will say this. I mean, very candidly, is that the fact that you guys were going to get married this last summer and it didn't work out, like not because of you and her, but because what you wanted out of this. You two had a conversation, and you had probably multiple conversations that this wasn't the way you guys wanted to do it.
No.
And so you took the driver's seat and you guys pushed it back because it wasn't right.
Yep.
Not you and her, but the whole situation, the step in life. You realize that you guys, I assume, had a very, again, candid conversation or multiple conversations, that it's you and her, but that step, what you envisioned, wasn't what you wanted it to be.
I think it's hard for people to cut the shit.
Absolutely.
In all aspects of life.
You've been able to
100%.
cut through it though.
If-
From when I met you, though, you wanted to cut through
For
the
better
shit.
or worse.
Yeah, but
that's
yeah.
the way. I mean, that's an only child. In my mind, that's an only child mentality. There's
also
no
someone who wants resolution versus wants to have shit dangling out there.
I mean, when like I told Steve, and last time I was on the podcast with Miguel, like it took a little bit of liquor to get into me to even like talk, because, you know, I'm sitting there with my boss. I don't want to say the same shit that I did 3 years ago. And I look back and I watch old episodes and listen to old episodes, and it's like, Jesus Christ, I bet everybody thought I was a complete jackass. and it's like now
we would never say it to your face.
well
I would.
Yeah, we would.
well, Steve and I did say it to each other's face.
I was there for,
multiple times.
I was there for
I'm-
some of those Saturday nights in the
I'm
Tinder
pretty
Box.
sure I might have flipped the table and went over to Steve's dad's place and cussed his dad out, and then came back.
Missed that one.
So, and then
we
I
had
came
some
back.
moments. We were close. We were
Yeah.
close.
I mean,
We
that's
grew.
I have nothing. I feel like the main point of this cut the shit thing is that I just always bring it back to humility and understanding yourself and trying to understand people. And if you have a problem, admit it. And if you don't have a problem, and if you made an issue with somebody else, like, own up to it. Like, I mean, what the worst someone can say is they're just not going to speak to you again, and then you're better off anyways.
It's fair. Nate, how
So-
about you?
Oh.
Yeah, dude, close your mouth.
What?
We're in
Well, I've
closing
been
remarks.
talking for 10 minutes, so I'm sorry.
Come on,
Nate?
dude.
What I think part of cutting through the shit comes out of simplicity, and it relates to that 80-20 rule. A lot of times, you know, in your life or in your career, 20% of the people you interact with will get 80% of the attention or the time.
Yeah.
But that's because those are especially in your personal life, those are the 20% of the people that you truly care about and want to have a relationship with and continue a strong relationship with. And that's why you spend so much time with that person or interacting with that person. You know, we all have people in our lives that we've either cut out or we could cut out because we don't spend that much time with them, but then also because they don't really provide that much of a benefit to us. I've talked about it before. There was a friend of mine that I've had since high school that years ago, everything they were saying was negative, and not just negative, but to the point where like it was causing me anxiety and was not good for me. It was causing me to get riled up and want to have an argument with that person. Like, I wasn't necessarily looking for an argument. I was looking for a discussion, but that person was just going to have an argument back. And it got to the point where I had to make a conscious choice. Like, what benefit is this person actually providing in my life?
Mm.
And I literally cut that person out. And during the past, I'd say 5-6 years that I've cut that person out, that person has never once reached out to me.
You're good.
So
that's your answer.
So obviously I
You're
didn't
good.
mean that much to them. So so now, because I don't have to worry about what that person thinks and try to go out of my way to maintain a relationship with that person, like I have so much more energy to spend on the people that are important in my life.
Yeah.
But also there's so much less stress on my life because I don't have to worry about the shit that person was saying.
You have to let go of that.
Yeah, and I had absolutely no problem whatsoever letting that go. If that person ever decided that they wanted to ask me what was going on and why I hadn't interacted, I'll be upfront and honest with them. And I don't know how they'll respond to that. Hopefully they'll take that with a grain of grace and understand, why I cut them out. They may not.
Does
and that's
it matter?
fine. Huh?
Does it matter?
It doesn't matter to me.
There you go.
If that person wants to be a part of my life, great. We can work on that. But if they don't, that's fine too. I'll the time I would spend on them, I'll spend with other people that are closer to me.
That's a good point.
And that's more from a personal standpoint. From a business standpoint, one of the things I've come to realize over the last year or so is that there are some people I work with that would rather tell me something later than tell me now. So if they see an issue with something I've done, they don't want to tell me right away, so that way I can correct the problem, or that person I can have a conversation to address that issue, or get my feelings on that.
Because they want to see you fail.
Well, not necessarily that they would rather see me fail. They would rather just wait until like a review or something came up. And I actually said it in a job interview I had recently. If you're an employee and you are surprised by a year-end review, your manager has failed you.
100%.
Because if the manager if your boss, Jake, your boss is Miguel, one of your bosses, and I've known Miguel for many, many years. If Miguel saw a problem with you, I know Miguel is not going to just sit there and wait until the end of the year to tell you what the problem is. Right. He's going to tell you as soon as he realizes there's a problem, because he wants to address it. He wants to fix it. And he also wants the best from you, because you're also representing a company. He wants the best for that company as well. I have worked with people that, they think they have the company's best interest in mind. They don't necessarily have my best interest in mind, or did have my best interest in mind. So they waited until a review to tell me something negative. And so I was like, well, wait a minute, that happened 6 months ago. Like, why are you telling me that now? Why not tell me when that happened, so that way we as a team can address that issue, and I can take the necessary steps to fix that.
Based on the topic, how would that change?
For me, the way that changes and has changed is I bring it up. If I think that person has a problem with me, I either bring it up to that person or I bring it up to other people over top of that person. Because sometimes there have been times where I might bring it up to the person that caused it, and it's caused retaliation. So I no longer feel comfortable or safe bringing up any issue to that person whatsoever.
All right, so you can't cut the shit.
Not with them.
Okay.
Yeah. So then I go to the next level up, and sometimes I can't cut the shit with them either. I tell them, but that person is just like the person I was reporting to.
Yeah, it's fair.
So it's like, oh, all right, if I can't cut through,
What's the solution? What's your closing remarks? What's the solution?
For me, the solution was whether that person wanted to accept that there was an issue or not. I just needed to do my best effort.
Okay.
I needed to do the best I could, so that way that person no longer has any ammunition over me whatsoever.
Spencer, do you agree? What are your closing remarks?
Okay. Yeah, I agree or disagree. It's not, I mean,
It's very good, Nate. I was listening. I'm sorry.
okay. So, all right, my closing remarks.
No, it's good.
Okay. So, first off, Jake, I just wanted to truly just thank you for you. This is actually my 21st episode.
Jesus.
So I'm officially legal. So if you can imagine what you and Steve put together over all these
early on, that's a young buck.
I'm officially legal.
Yeah, this is my 21st episode. So
are you an honorary member? Is that what that is?
For putting this together.
We've been putting him off. We've been putting him off for months. Man,
I'm legal.
You've been putting them off for months.
We've been carding him since
21.
You should. Do you know what, Steve? We need to do like coins, like challenge coins.
I'm expecting a jacket of some sort.
No, we need challenge.
You bought a hoodie. You bought a hoodie.
Yeah, we need challenge coins.
I'd like to get something for free out of this.
Challenge coins.
That was the whiskey.
So the whiskey was delicious.
The free whiskey.
Free whiskey was. I feel
and free cigars. And free cigars. But Jake, it's actually truly a pleasure to see you on my 21st episode because you guys started this thing. So for it to kind of come full circle, I don't take it for granted. I appreciate everything that you, Steve, and Nate have put together over the years. So I just want to say thank you. As far as cutting the shit, I'm going to try to cut the shit real quick here. It's I think we all realize that it's just you guys had an episode, Speak Up a little bit ago.
Yeah.
Speak up. It's also honesty is the best policy. Sometimes not everyone's willing to hear it, and you need to have some tact with it.
Yep.
But if you can be blunt and to the point, I think if you can cut through the shit, you have a chance of getting the best result for yourself and also for the other party. But I am genuinely grateful to be here. Jake, hope that you'll come in town soon. I wish you truly the best on your future endeavors, and hopefully you move back to Columbus soon.
In a year, brother.
That's the plan. So cut the shit is a topic that I was inspired to bring this podcast.
What was your inspiration?
His party.
No, just people around me. People around me, honestly. And it's how you handle yourself around people that are important to you, whether it be a career thing. And that was the biggest inspiration to this is when you are working a job, you can't just shoot from the hip. Jake, the fact that you're a part of this is so perfect because there was a time when I knew you that you would just shoot from the hip and you could care less because you were cutting the shit that you didn't care about what other people thought about you.
Yep.
As we grow in our relationships, there's a point where you have to walk a line, whether it be your employer, your customer, your girlfriend, boyfriend, your wife, your husband. But at some point, you have to have a little bit of give and take. This whole thing about cutting the shit is, to me, is you get to a point where you can live the song and dance of life, whether it be your job or your personal relationship. But at a certain point, you have to just be honest
with yourself and everyone else.
You have to expose yourself.
Yeah. Amen.
And that is very scary. because there are so many times if you're in a job and you see things going not right, if you're in a relationship and you're not happy, you're afraid to do it. But if you expose yourself or cut the shit and you just throw yourself out there and you're completely open and honest, vulnerable, absolutely. And you make your expectations known, there is a bit of a song and dance or a bit of a situation where you make sure that you're taken care of, that if they don't reciprocate or they don't respect that or they're not open to hear what you have to say, you might be fucked.
Whiskey helps.
Huh?
Whiskey helps.
Whiskey does help, but I'm saying that this situation is that you have to be confident in what you want, and a lot of times it's aimed towards the well-being of the significant other, of the career path you're on, the company you work for. You want to do that, but everything that you're doing or saying is falling on deaf ears. That's the reassessment. You cut through the shit. Sales side that we talked about. The same, it's very similar principles that you got to make sure that you are doing your side of it. If it's not reciprocated, you can be honest. And it's how you portray that honesty. You can just say, fuck you. Hey, here's this. Or you can be passive aggressive. Like, hey, what do you need? You find that middle ground that makes you happy. But at some point you have to cut it off and you say, this is what I need.
May I ask you a question, Steve?
Of course.
So how have you adjusted since the time that we've done, when we started this, your mentality?
In what way?
We've talked a lot about me, and I've seen
the show.
Well, no, I mean you personally. Like we haven't seen each other a lot in the last 3 years, I would say, and we've both grown a lot, and
I agree.
And we're both not the same people that we are. And none of us around this round table here are the same people that we were, 3-4 years ago. And so as far as, well, I'm still here.
We are too.
And so what have you done to adjust and go forward based on cutting your shit out of your life?
I've accepted the reality of people that are important to me, that value me. Relationship wise, I have met someone that values me very much the way that I value them.
A lovely woman.
She is. I have taken the strengths and best practices the best I can in my personal life, and I've had some ups and downs in that. From a career standpoint, I have talked to my employer about what's important and where we go from there. So I've taken those ups and downs since we met, or to your point.
And how do you feel? How do you feel after taking those steps?
I feel positive growth.
Good.
Yeah.
That's what I wish for you, brother.
Thanks, man. To you the same way. Spencer, Nate, same way.
I just don't think everybody gets to hear what your specific examples are. through this podcast, though, Steve. Like we get a look into like your garage, and we see this idea.
It ain't about me anymore, bro.
Of what? Yeah, we don't need Spencer anymore. But I think we see this idea of what like you and I cultivated like almost 4.5 years ago.
Yeah.
And I think the world deserves to understand Steve Crane a little more in detail about what you go through, because I know what you go through, and I've listened to it. Spencer and Nate have listened to it, and I think, when I invite you out to my parents' house in Granville, Ohio,
I was there last time.
That's it's always a special moment when we get to see each other, and that's why you're my fucking brother. So
Love you,
man. I think the world needs to understand, instead of being PC and very vague about situations, I would love for everyone to hear about how you feel about your positive reinforcement and everything that has gone on, and understanding, you cutting the shit and what you've done in your life.
No, I think that I've learned a lot over this past several years, and I'm very thankful for the people that have been here in my life. Nate's one of them. Spencer's you.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Spencer
I'm trying to have a moment for Jake here.
Yeah, Spencer just took a very big drink of 115 proof rye.
I don't think Spencer's ever heard anybody ask Steve these questions before, so he's kind of on.
I appreciate it.
All right.
It's like watching.
All right, so Jake,
everything I hope for.
Tell you what, tell you what, Jake. I think that in the upcoming weeks, when you're free on a Wednesday night,
yeah,
we have a heart to heart.
Yes,
we'll
sir.
do it live.
Yes, sir.
Yes, if Spencer is available, I know Nate wants to be a part of it.
I'm around whenever this happens. Just let me know. I'll be there.
I'll clear it by Kristen, but
my fucking schedule. As many Coors Light as this
Christmas episode, you got to wear bells.
I'm telling you. But I think it'd be great for to that point. I'm not trying to project, but I think it'd be great to have you and Alicia on. And
yeah.
I think, honestly, here's my thing: Nate and Jess, Spencer and Jennifer, and also Sean Wilkinson and Teresa.
We gotta have some rabbits though if he's gonna be on there.
What's that?
We gotta have some rabbits on if Sean's gonna be on.
Well, not in my garage. I'm just saying we should have a couples episode.
There is an idea.
Because
offline.
To your point, I have been supported by a very, very amazing person.
Aw.
Kristen. And it took me a while to open myself out to that person. But yeah, thank you for asking that.
Yeah.
Guys, as always, wish you were here in the garage, Jake. Happy Whiskey Wednesday.
Yep.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers.
Cheers, everybody.
Cheers, bro. All right, let's cut the shit. What do you guys actually?
Cut that out.